That's true. I remember that.
Got it.
For this one, I'm just struggling. My thing shut down and now I'm not. My hotspot's not working. Stearns campus, Stearns Gus. That fingered.
Do we have to get going?
Okay. Oh, okay.
Oh my, it's got a sight.
Wow.
Everybody good?
Wow, that's interesting.
Okay, turn your mics on.
I never forget.
Ready, Angie?
All righty, we will come to order. Thank you for being here. We've got a bad echo there. Stop? Okay. Please join me in Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag, United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you all for being here. This is Thursday, September 26th, 2024, Planning Commission for Stearns County. I am District 4 Representative and Chair Sean Blackburn. With us this evening, we have, down on the end,
Rich Malinkish at large. District 3, Jason Crone.
thank you,
District 5, Jacob Hawk.
thank you.
Joe Persky, County Commissioner.
All righty. Now, let's get right into it. We're looking at agenda item number 1. While we introduce your petition, please come forward to the applicant's table. This is an application to consider a conditional use permit request for a major shoreland alteration by the Clark Family Trust of Coon Rapids, Minnesota, for a topographic alteration on steep slopes in the shore impact zone of Sauk Lake, according to section 10.2.14D of Stearns County Land Use and Zoning Ordinance number 439. The property is lots 22 and 23 of Evelyn's Addition in section 34 of Sauk Center Township. The property address is 44387 Sauk View Drive of Sauk Center, Minnesota. And take the item, please.
Sure. Mr. Chair, members of the Planning Commission, this is a major shoreline alteration request on a parcel that's 1.17 acres in size. The topography here is extremely steep slope within the shore impact zone. There's approximately 20 feet of elevation change within 40 feet of the lake. It would be considered bluff if it was a few feet higher. The soils here are 207 sea loamy sand, which are potentially highly erodible due to the slope. Vegetation, woody vegetation has been removed from some of the slope over the past 5 years. Larger trees and shrubs will grow back. Some of the remaining vegetation present that is what maintains the integrity of the slope and meets the minimum vegetation requirements as it exists. There's mapped floodplain at the toe of the slope. The septic system certified compliant this summer. It's an R1 zoning district and it's on Sauk Lake. Sauk Lake does have lake impairments. One is for aquatic life, and that was found through fish bioassessments. Aquatic consumption, there's high mercury levels in the lake, which is a bioaccumulative toxin, and then aquatic recreation for elevated nutrient levels. In June of last year, I met with the property owner and the contractor on the site. They had inquired about doing an alteration last year. At that time, it was recommended against the application due to the slope grade, proximity to the water, and the existing access already being in place for access to the water. It would have been a major application at that time, just like it is now. In June of this year, the property owner inquired further and stated the intention to move forward with the application, and then submitted an application. The proposal includes about 1,770 cubic yards of topographic alteration on the steep slopes. It's all within the building setback of Sauk Lake. The proposed area of excavation and grading is about 140 feet wide near the structure setback and about 35 feet wide at the shoreline, extending landward about 100 feet from the lake. Essentially, anything over 100 cubic yards in the building setback like that requires a conditional use permit. Staff analysis here, just that lake access is already achieved via an existing stairway. The slope is relatively stable and good native vegetation is present. There's some rock at the toe of the slope with good willow, red osier dogwood, and other woody vegetation and extensive ground cover there. There's no immediate erosion concern. The ordinance does not support large-scale alterations of steep slopes and bluffs where alternatives exist. On this property, the existing steps can be used, replaced, or a lift could be installed above ground to achieve easier access to the water. Creating a larger area of slope here towards the lake will increase runoff volume to the lake rather than infiltrating it into the ground. The 20 feet of elevation change also poses significant runoff to the lake. There could be presence of groundwater or springs in the slope that increases the risk in a project like this. There's Soil and Water Conservation District comments that speak to this as well that were included. And you also received some DNR comments from the area hydrologist as well that spoke to those concerns, both on the land and what it means for runoff to the lake. We did receive some public testimony. There were 3 individuals that submitted comments. I can go through those now if you'd like.
Let's wait on that, Nick.
Okay.
Is that it for now?
Yep.
Okay. Let's do a quick roll call of people who visited the site. Jason?
Yes.
I did. Jake?
I did.
Rich?
I did.
And Joe?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Okay, and please introduce yourself.
I'm Tom Clark.
And Tom, do you have anything to add?
Well, since we're doing it, I think the address is wrong. It's 44378.
Ah,
You had mentioned 87, so I,
yes, you're correct. Okay. Anything more you need to add or want
just that we would like to, obviously get this taken care of. One of the things in some of those comments, we didn't have it in there, but I was talking to the engineer that drew this up, and for some of that water, mitigation, we could do a rock trench down at the bottom, probably like 3 feet up. So 3 feet up so that we can, take more of that water on, that it doesn't have the runoff. Now, he has it spread out there. When we were looking at this project, we were looking to take the stairs out and open this back up and have it all go natural, so it wasn't there. If we could swell the hill in to that, funnel it into that smaller area. So I would try and get that to come all back to natural, put that down there. We can actually throw some more vegetation on the back side of that hill if that's a chance of doing this. I mean, like, I threw out there, we had some bushes and stuff put in there, but I'd be happy to throw some dogwood trees down in there. A lot of the larger trees that were down on that bank disappeared when those straight line winds came through 2022, I think it was. I'm just looking for easier access for a couple of the elderly people that like to come up, and access to remove the docks and lift simpler. That's all.
All righty. Thank you, Tom. Commission members, questions, comments?
Yeah, question for the staff or the applicant. I mean, my understanding, this is existing today is natural shorelines, the way the bluff has been in essence since the lake was formed. Is that an accurate statement?
Yeah, more or less, I think that's about what it's been for a long time.
Yeah. Yeah, so, and in this case, we'd be proposing, the proposal is to basically move a lot of dirt to create easier access for you and your family, with some potential risks to the water system in general and everything downstream. Is that fairly accurate? Okay. That's kind of the way I was looking at this, so, okay, thank you.
Anything more?
Mr. Clark, I just looking at the shoreline there.
Yep.
You said, and I looked back, we've got some, previous aerial photographs of the area. There were some good-sized trees there at one time. Maybe here, take a look at those. These was the existing shoreline previously.
Yep,
And then you said some storms took those down.
correct.
Did any of that grow back?
Some of it's grown back. Yeah, it isn't that barren, in this particular photograph. Some of that vegetation has come back.
But if I was out there, I didn't see anything protruding up above the hill line.
Probably has not gone above the hill line, but if you go, like you see right down where the stairs are there, those, I think they're dogwoods, they're starting to grow up. They're up past that. That must be like a fall picture or something, where a lot of the vegetation is like dormant and dead for the year. That is, all those trees are behind the outbuilding that was there when we purchased the property.
Okay.
So, but like here, this is a newer photograph. Those trees are now starting to, that vegetation
Right,
along.
but if I look at that, I mean, it appears, and I saw some cuttings that looked like 3-4 inches in diameter that would have probably over the last 6 years would have, filled in that shoreline.
Well, I mean, we've had 14,
Ma'am, please come up and introduce yourself.
I'm sorry, I'm Joan Clark, Tom's wife. But we bought the property 4 years ago, and since then, 2 of the storms and we've got photos to prove it, but 2 of the storms knocked a lot of the trees down. Is that what you're asking?
No, I understand the storms, it takes them down, but it looks like there were some fresh cuttings down there when I was down there just the other day.
Say, Mr. Chair, Angie Berg, we got to make sure everyone's mouth is in the microphone. We're not going to pick you up otherwise, and this is being recorded. Thank you.
Okay, I'm just concerned because obviously that bank does need some stabilization, otherwise you basically will slide into the lake. That's what we're very concerned about.
Yeah, one of the major trees fell down last year, and it fell into the lake, and we had to remove it, if that's the one you're talking about.
Okay.
Or a year and a half ago, maybe.
Anything more? Okay, this meeting is open to the public. If there's anyone here in the public who wishes to address this, please come forward. We will close the public hearing then. Oh, right, I'm sorry. Please go ahead and give us a summation, Nick.
Sure. Received some comments from Kelly DuBois Gershak and Vance Gershak, 44436 Saukview Drive. Reviewed the proposal and found that the identified environmental risks and impact of the shoreline are very concerning. They have a nearby lake property, have had it for over 60 years, and that their past experience concurs with many of the findings of an analysis of the staff of Environmental Services, Soil and Water Conservation District, and the DNR, and they're not in favor of the project. Other comments from Lance Jensen, a Sauk Lake Association board member, 44394 Saukview Drive, writing that there's a lot of concerns about the project, and they request that the request it could impact the environment negatively, and they don't support the proposal. And then Bob Mueller, another Sauk Lake board member, association board member, from what they reviewed and saw firsthand in the proposal, they would not be in favor of approval in its present form.
All right, thank you, Nick. Any further discussion from the panel?
Nope.
Chair? And just curious, did you folks see the letter from the DNR?
I did not see the DNR letter.
Okay, Nick, maybe you want to give them a synopsis of that?
Sure, yep, I can read through that a little bit as well. This is from Nicola Blake Bradley, the DNR area hydrologist. The DNR recommends denial of the request. There's a few, there's 5 criteria that she pointed out. That access has already been approved and constructed through the staircase, so there's an existing alternative that's already in place rather than excavating the bank. Authorization of this would significantly alter the essential character of the locality. She points out there's not a unique circumstance to the property. The presence of the steep slope doesn't qualify as a unique circumstance. Erosion and sedimentation of public waters is one of the top problems in regards to water quality. And excavation of the bank in the impact zone has the potential to destabilize the area, which would potentially increase sedimentation to the water, which carries nutrients like phosphorus. And the existing slope and shoreline area is in good condition, as noted in the staff report and the pictures, especially closer to the water. And this would significantly alter that. And it's about the synopsis of it. So.
Thank you, Nick. All right, further discussion at all? Let's go to the findings of the facts then, please. Let's see, is the proposal consistent with existing county ordinances? Specify the application section of the ordinance and discuss why or why not.
Mr. Chair, I do not think it is consistent with county ordinances. I can't think of one that it necessarily applies at all, so.
Anyone else? Okay, moving on. Does the proposal conform to the comprehensive plan? List applicable sections.
Mr. Chair, same answer as before. I do not believe that it does. We could look at any of the nature goals and water goals and policies, and it doesn't fit any of them.
All right, thank you, Jason. Is the proposal compatible with the existing neighborhood?
To keep it moving, I'll take a shot and say no. I mean, there's existing shoreline there, and this would be inconsistent with what is naturally around the rest of the shoreline.
All righty, how has the applicant demonstrated that standards and criteria stated in the ordinance will be satisfied?
Mr. Chair, they did do an approved plan. You know, they have an engineered plan. So, you know, if it would have qualified, it, you know, it would have met under that regard. But it's just inconsistent with everything else. So it's kind of irrelevant.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes. Other issues pertinent, I would have to mention. Everyone who had anything to say about this said it was a bad idea, from the DNR to Nick Newman and Greg Burke.
And I would just add, I appreciate the sentiment. I mean, I get it. We have a hill in our backyard to understand accessibility, but you do this here, we would have hundreds, if not thousands, of applicants wanting to do the exact same thing to existing shoreline, and it'd be a struggle. So that's why the ordinance is there.
I understand that. I mean, I sit here, we've been on this lake. We were on the east side up in Todd County for 30-some years before we moved to this place. The challenge I see is, or seen, there's probably 40 different homes or lakeshore redevelopments, even on the Stearns County line that way, that have been done. In as steep a banks as we have, or steeper, and whether they did this the correct way or not, I can't say to that, but I see the change in the lake, and I'm petitioning out my part. I'm trying to follow all of the proper procedures through county ordinances and stuff.
I appreciate that.
To get this plan
Thank
through.
you. We appreciate that
Yeah.
and going through the process, certainly. Now, I will expect a motion.
Yeah, so I will make a motion to recommend denial.
I have a motion from Jason and
I'll
a
second it.
second from Rich. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you.
Mr. Clark, I also appreciate you coming in and
Yeah.
taking the appropriate steps. When we get after the fact, it's very disheartening to see people that have moved forward without the correct procedure, so thank you for coming in.
Thank you, Joe. That's right.
Appreciate it.
One meeting left. We're not the final,
true.
so you have one more board and then
Okay, but I mean, right now,
We're recommending denial, yes.
Yep. Yep.
And Mr. Chair, this item is scheduled for consent agenda on Tuesday.
Thank you. Thank
Okay.
you. All right, moving on to agenda item number 2. Excuse me. This item is to consider a rezoning request submitted by Carol Tam of St. Joseph, Minnesota, according to Section 4.10 of Stearns County Land Use and Zoning Ordinance 439, to rezone approximately 4.7 acres from the Ag 40 zoning district to the Residential 1 zoning district. The property is part of the southeast quarter, southwest quarter lying between County Road 2 and Arctic Circle in Section 34 of St. Wendell Township. Jen?
Good evening, Planning Commission members. So this application, as you mentioned, is requesting to take 4.7 acres approximately, change the zoning from A40 to R1. If it's rezoned, then the applicant plans to split off one lot for residential use. The property is right in the middle of 2 roadways, and the entire farm is larger to the north, but this is a little isolated chunk of their property that got created when County Road 2 was rerouted years ago. So the access, even though they have County Road 2 on the west side, the access would actually come from Arctic Circle on the east side. There are no feedlots within 700 feet of that area requested to be rezoned. As you can see, it's a fairly residential area, rural residential lots to the east, and then also some to the west. The city of St. Joe is directly south of this property. If the rezoning is approved, it would enable one additional building entitlement on the property. Even though it's almost 5 acres that would go to R1, there just simply isn't room there for more than one lot to meet setbacks and have septic sites on it. When you look at the comp plan, this is in a transition area in our future land use map. The LISA score on the property is 66. That's above the threshold of 65, mainly due to the soils. It's such a small piece, and it was one soil type which scored 50 out of 50. St. Wendell Township did review it and recommended approval, which was included in your packet. And I don't have anything else.
Thank you. We'll do a quick roll call of members who visited the site. Jason?
Yes.
I did. Jake?
yes, I did.
Thank you. Rich?
Yes, I did.
Thank you. And Joe?
Yes.
Thank you. All righty. Please introduce yourself.
My name is Carol Tam, and I live in St. Joseph, and I'm in St. Wendell Township.
Do you have anything to add at this point?
No, I think Jennifer did a pretty good job. Obviously, I mean, you can see that this was taken when they restructured County Road 2, and it's just a piece of property that is just only, you can't really do much on it, and it was no good to me, and so I just want to get it off my portfolio. So when something would happen to me, I want the kids not to have to
Sure.
know what.
Sure.
But
All
I
right.
do have, I gave the picture to Jennifer too of the piece before and after. They took it and they actually went through there and went in that pasture and just kind of cut everything up. In fact, when DeLeo was surveying it, he actually thought at first maybe there was more there. They didn't really even know because it was, I don't know, not done right, I guess.
Everything in yellow, Carol, is what is county right-of-way now? The county
Yes.
acquired the yellow?
Yeah. And there's a house there, a little house, which Tim Borsch owns, who is here, and he would buy the property and then maybe eventually build a little house or build a shed and live in that house because he lives in town in St. Joe. So that's really all we're doing. I know some people thought that the other piece that I have on the other side, that we were developing that, because I had a few people that approached me, but I'm not doing anything with that.
All right. Thank you. Commission members, questions, comments?
No, this is
Pretty straightforward.
pretty straightforward.
Well, with this hearing is open to the public. If there's anyone here who wishes to address, please come up to the podium.
Identify yourself.
If you come to the podium, please.
Oh, and I wanted to come over and talk to you.
Sir, your name and address, please.
Yeah, is this picking me up?
It is.
Tom Curry in St. Joseph, St. Wendell Township. Just had a couple of, I was kind of confused when I read this, exactly where it was and exactly what was being done. I don't know what the current regulation was between septics and water systems. I thought that was a 5-acre minimum that had changed in the past. And other than turning this into residential, we talking just one home on the area, or are we looking at something in the future that changes this aspect into lesser acreage becoming R1 district? That's my concern. I mean, this is obviously larger than our existing property. We just don't want something to start a development in the future. So if somebody can clarify that for me, that'd be fine.
Jen?
Yes, I can address that. The zoning map is up on the screen right now. All the green there is zoned agricultural currently. The R10 to the west is what was platted years back. Carol platted 2 lots there, Cloudy Hill. So those are 10-acre lots. But the area that's hashed is what is requested to be rezoned to an R1. So if that's approved, then the minimum lot size is actually less than an acre, 30,000 square feet, as long as they can support 2 septic sites there. But given the lay of that property and all of the road right-of-way surrounding it, it doesn't appear feasible to get more than 1 lot there and meet setbacks.
That's been my concern in the past, has been addressing that even our existing lots that are 1 acre, that we were too close together in the future, that we couldn't have it that close together, have septic and water systems that close, and eventually it would force city water systems to come out. So that's my concern. I don't want something that's kind of laying the groundwork for that. Other than that, I have no problems with
All right, thank
several
you.
acres.
And Mr. Chair, just a question for clarity. Even after a rezoning, it still has to be platted, correct?
That's correct.
Oh, no, and if it's just that piece of property,
Was there anyone else who wished to speak?
maybe a starting of a development. Sorry.
Anything else? Any correspondence?
No correspondence.
All righty,
Make a motion we close the public hearing.
I have a motion and a second.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Further discussion of any kind? Anyone? Well, let's just jump to the findings of facts then. Is the proposal consistent with the zoning ordinance? Why or why not?
Mr. Chair, I believe it is in alignment with Section 4.10 of Stearns County Land Use and Zoning Ordinance 439.
Thank you, Jason. Did I get something mixed up there? Does the proposal conform to the comprehensive plan of the county? Please list applicable sections. Oops.
Mr. Chair, under the living goals, manage the impacts of growth and development on the county's rural character.
Also fits support housing options that give people in all life stages and all the economic means viable choices.
Thank you, Rich. Is the proposal compatible with the existing neighborhood? Why or why not?
Mr. Chair, I believe it is. This is rezoning. There's some other residential zoning in the area, and it's directly north of the city of St. Joe where there's more housing.
Thank you. How has the applicant demonstrated that standards and criteria stated in the ordinance will be satisfied?
Mr. Chair, they've worked with staff and others to make sure that the property was surveyed and understood. This is a rezoning. It's fairly straightforward.
Thank you. Now, are there other issues pertinent to this matter?
Mr. Chair, if we look, the township reviewed this and approved it also.
Thank you. Thank you, Rich. All righty. I expect a motion then.
I would make a motion that we approve this request.
I will second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Sorry, got a little carried away. Opposed? Same sign? No, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Get her done. All right, agenda item number 3. This is a petition to consider the conditional use permit requested submitted by Irvin and Carol Herdering of Melrose, Minnesota, according to sections 4.8, 6.18, and 9.3.5 of Stearns County Land Use and Zoning Ordinance 439. The request is to operate a contractor's yard in the Ag 40 zoning district. The property is in part of the southwest quarter, southeast quarter, lying east of County Road 167 and Section 16 of Millwood Township. The property address is 41126 County Road 167 in Melrose. Jen?
Okay, so this application is for a contractor's yard. The applicant, Herdering Inc., owns the property to the south, which is where their business currently lies. And so this application is requesting to build a new structure to the north in a property that's zoned ag, and it fits in the ordinance as a contractor's yard. This particular building will be used to construct a new shop for equipment repair. Let's see. So this is in Shoreland. Long Lake is located to the south, which is a natural environment lake. One thing I updated in the staff report this morning, initially there was nothing indicating wetlands when I did the computerized review. After stopping out there, I did notice a low area where they want to put the shed. So after reviewing with our wetland staff, determined the actual proposed shed location will not be in wetland, but it's directly adjacent. So I spoke with Irv Herdering. He'll just need to move the shed a bit north to ensure that any excavating and backfill around the shed complies with Wetland Conservation Act and doesn't result in fill to the wetland. So we'll review that a little more closely before we actually issue the construction permit. So that was one change that we added in there today. And if you want to look at the photo from the actual picture I took when I was out there, there we go. So the stake on the right-hand side is the north edge of the shed, and then the next picture down, the stakes show, those stakes on the left, that's the south end of the shed. And that low area to the left of the stakes, that is where the grass wasn't cut and the machinery was clearly got rutted in there. That's the wetland. So, and Irv sounded like there was room to just move the building a bit north and avoid that area altogether. So that is wetlands. As far as stormwater management goes, this project does not trip 1 acre of new impervious, so that is not required. They will have a bathroom in the shed, so they'll obtain a septic system permit for that before we issue the construction permit. So the performance standards in the ordinance for a contractor's yard are all met. And like I said, the bulk of their business is operated on the parcel to the south, which is zoned commercial. So there's not going to be a lot of stuff going on here. but if they have enough space there for parking, 4 spaces are required. They're not proposing any outdoor storage, but if they did, they'd have to screen it. They can have up to 4 employees in that building, and they can have up to 20 licensed vehicles on that property as part of the contractor's yard. And looking at the area, it is fairly agricultural. The city of St. Rosa is less than a quarter mile to the north. The future land use map shows this as an ag area. And so suggested conditions, if the Planning Commission were to recommend approval, number 1, the state accessibility code must be met. So I have sent the building plans off to our contracted inspector to review that for compliance with the accessibility code. Outdoor storage and screening, if they do have that on the property, then they'll have to locate it to the side or rear of the structure and screen it. No more than 4 employees may be engaged in the conduct of the contractor's yard at any one time on a regular basis. This does not include employees who are on site only to pick up and drop off equipment. There may be a maximum of 20 vehicles on the property. And then the 5th one I added today was requiring compliance with the Minnesota Wetland Conservation Act. And that's all I have.
So just to clarify, there's nothing about hours of operation or anything in here?
Not proposed. You can certainly discuss it.
All right, quick roll call of members who visited the site. Jason?
Yes.
Thank you. I did. Jake?
I did.
Rich?
I did.
Thank you. And Joe?
Yes.
All righty. Please introduce yourselves and add anything that you might like to.
My name's Irvin Herdering. Been working with Jen on trying to get the permit or what we can do, and we're talking with the wetland issue. There's those trees along the driveway. We plan on taking them out, and I just set up the stakes to get an idea of what it would look like, so that the stakes are not actually set in stone or whatever. But we plan on taking the trees out up to the driveway, so we can definitely move the building to the north.
All right, thank you. Commission members, questions?
Sean, I got a question.
Please.
Yeah, Jennifer, I was just looking at the plat here. Is this on 2 different parcels?
Yeah.
But the building is actually going to go on the residential piece? Again, I just question, we're building something commercial, but it's on the residential property. That's the way it is. That's the way it is. But it just.
I bought that parcel from my mom about 10 years ago. So that's why there's 2 different parcels there.
Yeah, so as far as selling the business, then that's more related to the business than it is to the house. And does that present a problem? I mean, if a person would want to keep the business and sell the house? I mean, it just seems that it should all be one property, or that the building should be on the commercial piece opposed to the house piece.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
If I could add to that, both of these parcels actually have a home on them. And so Irv and Carol own the one to the south and have for many, many years. And then his mom owned the one to the north. So they each have a house, and that's where they each respectively live. But, you bring up a fair point. There will be one building with the business on the parcel to the north, but Irv and Carol do own them both. And if they ever wanted to sell at some point, they could look at modifying property lines if they wanted.
One other question. Then is the piece to the north zoned commercial, but the piece to the south is zoned commercial?
Part of the property to the south is commercial, the part with the business.
Okay.
And then, I don't think I have a zoning map, but that you can see both pieces there. So part of the property to the south is commercial, most of it's ag. The one to the north, where this new building would go, is all zoned ag.
Mr. Chair, Angie Berg, just something else to add is, unlike other rural businesses, contractors' yards don't require a home on the parcel. And so that's the one comment. And the second comment is that Herdering's property likely was included as commercial when we enacted our first zoning ordinance and zoning map in 2000, because he's been there for so long. Now it wouldn't be required to be commercial, and that's why he's here just asking for a conditional use permit in the ag district, so.
No, it's not a problem. It's just that I don't want it to be a problem.
But
And
it's a good point. no
Yeah,
doubt.
so I'm just looking forward, you know, if you're gonna sell or what you're gonna do with the properties in the future. Because this is a change, and that, you know, that this change is probably gonna outlast everybody here in this room, so, yeah. Okay, and then the issue with the wetland, you know, from up on top of the road, it looks a lot worse than it is when you get down below. Once you get down below it, you can see that, access to that building is appropriate because of where the driveways are for the
Right.
other buildings, so yeah, no. And the water runs the other way from the top of that hill. It's just in that little pocket where that runs
Right.
down there, so somehow you're gonna maybe have to have some type of ponding or drainage or something that, you know, won't
There
be.
is a drain tile that runs underneath there behind the barn.
Oh,
It's
there-
been there forever.
okay, well, that should take care of
And
it.
this year with the rains, it's a small tile. And it, you know, it doesn't drain
Yeah.
real fast. Sometimes it ponds a little bit. And
Okay. No, I think it's a good project, so.
All right, anything more? This is a public hearing. If there's anyone in the public who wishes to speak on this application, please come forward. Jason?
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll second that.
I have a motion to close the public hearing and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Get the prompt.
Further discussion of any kind?
No, looks like a nice addition to the business.
We'll jump right into findings of facts if I can find them. Is the proposal consistent with the zoning ordinance? Why or why not?
Mr. Chair, it is consistent with the zoning ordinance number 439, sections 4.8, 6.18, and 9.3.5.
Thank you, Rich. Does the proposal conform to the comprehensive plan of the county?
Mr. Chair, I believe it does, a variety of them. I'll just pick rural business policies. Number one, which is rural business should not alter the rural character of the neighborhood and should not create negative impacts on the public health, safety, and general welfare of adjacent property owners, which this one will clearly not do.
Thank you, Jason. Is the proposal compatible with the existing neighborhood? Why or why not?
Mr. Chair, it's just an additional building going up on the site where the business is already being run, so I don't see much of a change.
All right,
It's compatible.
Thank you. How has the applicant demonstrated that standards and criteria stated in the ordinance will be satisfied?
Mr. Chair, I believe it's in the documentation that's been provided.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Other issues pertinent to this matter?
Mr. Chair, I think it is pertinent that the applicant's been operating a successful business on that property for many years, and this is just an opportunity for them to expand.
Thank you, Jason. I agree. I'm looking for a motion then.
Mr. Chair, I will recommend approval with, we have 5 conditions with that.
Mr. Chair, I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you.
thanks for your time.
Good luck.
Moving on to number 4. Agenda item number 4 is a petition to consider a conditional use permit application submitted by Lang Family Properties of Eden Valley, Minnesota. According to sections 4.8, 6.7, and 9.3.5 of Stearns County Land Use and Zoning Ordinance 439, to operate an agriculturally oriented business. The proposed project is located in part of the southwest quarter, southeast corner, lying north of County Road 34 in Section 20 of Eden Lake Township. The property address is 23588 County Road 34 of Eden Valley, Minnesota. And Jen?
Yes. So this is request for an after-the-fact conditional use permit for an agriculturally oriented business. The business makes animal feed and pet food and was started up in 2012. The applicants actually used to own a mink farm directly adjacent to the east. The mink are no longer there. The business still produces mink food and pet food. It's really an ag-oriented business, which is an allowed use in the ag districts, but does require a conditional use permit. So that's why they are here requesting this. The property is subject to a compliance agreement to get the permitting all up to par and get into compliance with the ordinance. The zoning is Ag 40, and it's not in any shoreland or any other overlay districts. They do have existing access from County Road 34, and there are no wetlands in the location of the buildings. There is a wetland on the northeast corner of the parcel, which is pretty obvious. Let's see. So being that it's a 40-acre parcel, the lot coverage is well below the maximum of 25%. The performance standards for an ag-oriented business, it certainly meets the requirement to be support ag, being that they make animal feed. The accesses are existing, I mentioned. Again, being a business, it does need to comply with the accessibility portion of the state building code. So the property owner has contacted our contracted building inspector, who's going to be out there next week to look things over and see if everything's up to code or what might need to be changed. Let's see. The setbacks are met other than the east property line. We don't have a survey showing where that property line is. The building may not meet the setback, but it's pre-existing. It was permitted when they owned both parcels. Okay, so outdoor storage, they are not indicating any need for outdoor storage. Again, like the last application, if they were to add any, it needs to be to the rear or side of the structure and be screened. Parking spaces are outlined in the staff report, and they need a total of 33 spaces, which are shown on one of the aerial photos. No signage is existing or proposed. Looking at the overall area, it's primarily an agricultural area. 5 feedlots within a half a mile, 13 homes. The zoning is all agricultural in that area as well. And on our future land use map, it's in an ag district for future planning. So recommended actions, if the, that shows the parking there. If the Planning Commission recommends approval, the recommended conditions would be an approved stormwater management plan is required, and then submitting a financial guarantee to ensure the stormwater plan gets installed correctly. And the suggestion is to get that financial guarantee by December 1st, and then have the stormwater plan actually installed and implemented by June 15th of next year. And then release of the financial guarantee is contingent upon getting an as-built drawing and approval from an engineer that it was built to meet the original design specifications. The stormwater facilities shall be maintained in perpetuity. And then no additional impervious surface shall be added that's not accounted for in the approved plans unless they have an amended stormwater plan submitted and approved. We talked about accessibility. They'll need a accessibility certificate form returned to us by a licensed building official to indicate they're in compliance with that. If they were to erect a sign at some point, it has to meet the sign standards. If they have outdoor screening or outdoor storage, it has to be screened. Number 5, access approval is required from the Highway Department. I did hear back from Highway, and the approaches that are there were approved. So that one we can take off, number 5. And then 6, discuss whether days and hours of operation shall be set. And that's all I have on this one.
Thank you, Jen. All right, a quick roll call. Members who visited the site. Jason?
Yes.
I did. Jake?
Yep.
Rich?
Yes, I did.
And Joe?
Yes.
All right, thank you all. Applicants, introductions, and anything you need to add at this point?
My name is Dan Lang, the owner. So for starters, I'm not requesting a permit. So I do agree with a stormwater plan. I think there needs to be something, but from what the engineer put forth, it's unbelievable. So they want a 440-foot stormwater pond, actually two, together equaling 440 feet. And I got like a preliminary estimate, and they're talking between $70,000 and $120,000. And so August 5th, we had over 6 inches of rain in 2 hours, and a 100-year storm is 6 inches of rain. I don't know, Jennifer, do you have the photos that I sent you? Or I brought some.
Do you have some printed? Perfect.
Yeah. Well, I got copies
Deb,
for
can you
everybody
switch to the
if they
doc
want
cam,
them.
please?
What was that?
I wouldn't mind seeing the pictures if we could get a copy too.
Yeah.
Oh, perfect.
Oh, there's copies for everyone. There we go.
Well, Mr. Chair, while we're looking for that, actually, I'm kind of glad the applicant brought it up. It was one thing that jumped out at me. Oh, that's fine. So just real quick, before we get into this topic too much more, there's no changes to
We
the
didn't change
property,
nothing.
right?
So what we did is we got an offer on our other 40 acres with the mink sheds, and they did a calf operation there. It was an offer we couldn't refuse. So we still are raising it mink. We're just doing it in a different county in a different area. The building operation has not changed at all. And I actually just did, I'm doing a report for the Department of Labor right now, and 8% of our business out of that building is pet food. The rest, according to, for pounds wise, according to, you know, what they want. Well, anyway, these photos, so this was taken about an hour or so after the rain. So this is Stearns County's ditch. The next one is another Stearns County ditch that's to the south, like that's Lakewood and 34. That's to would be to the east of us. The other picture, I mean, it just keeps going. You get to our property, we're the only ones that didn't have any water in our ditch. And the water literally ran, you know, the last picture, I mean, there's another one. That water there, you could put a boat in. That's it flowing. That's how fast it's flowing.
This is in a county road ditch?
Yes, this is your guys' ditch. And there's another one. And then that is right after the rain taking the same time, our drive, and it flows into where they want to put the pond. We have the water, you know, so it does flow that way. But that's what our ditch looked like. But so they want us to put a pond in from the edge of the driveway there all the way to the cornfield. In our lifetime together, there will never be any water that goes down that far. Ever, ever, ever. I mean, I'm not saying that there needs to be something, a riprap, or there needs to be something put in, but, you know, to spend this kind of money after being in business, I mean, we do business in Candiota County, we do business in Stearns County, we do business in Polk County, we do business in Missouri. And I've never seen anything, I mean, this is just an overkill. And I talked to Brian Schultz today, and he said that, I mean, he did the plan to Stearns County ordinance, but the ordinance are so tough, this pond is actually over 10 times bigger than what it should be, because it goes by impervious. It doesn't actually go by soil type to a point. So to me, I mean, if we have to do it, we have to do it. I'm going to comply. You know, it just seems to be, you know, using a little common sense here, and it's just a big waste of money. Yeah. I mean, we built a berm last year at our other plant by Howick. It's in Candiota County. We didn't have to do it. The neighbors were complaining about a condenser running. Well, that berm is 12 feet tall. It's about 20, 25 feet wide, and they told us that's gonna stop the sound. That costed us $47,000, and we're gonna tear it off because it doesn't work. And I just don't wanna throw another $100,000 down the tubes if I don't have to.
Mr. Chair, this came up earlier, something I was going to bring up anyway, and it was even before the ordinance. I mean, I think the ordinances, you always set these things up with the best intentions, and then sometimes they have unintended consequences, which we're probably seeing one of these here. To back up even further, I get how it happens, but it does seem like what first caught me is I've driven by that property a quadrillion times, well, 23. I was right on my route to Coronis the last 3 summers. And I was like, stormwater treatment or management plan on that property, because it's flat. There's nothing around, and there's no wetlands around. So it struck me initially, but then I'm like, well, there's nothing changing, so why is a stormwater plan need now? And I get it now because it's part of the ordinance, but boy, if there's a pre-existing site and nothing's changing, then to require it after the fact was something that struck me beforehand, and then obviously it snowballs from there, because that is a cost that doesn't seem necessary. It's not changing anything, but yet it is an ordinance.
Now, we did build that shop to the west, and it does have a wash bay in it, and I know that has been questioned about the water. We put 2 tanks in, and we have a pumping contract on that. I mean, that has nothing to do with the stormwater thing.
Right.
We didn't put a drain field in. We didn't want to deal with the drain field with, washing trucks. And we have to wash our trucks for, disease purposes and stuff like that. So what we did is we put a settling tank in and then another bigger tank, and we have a pumping contract with Austin, and they're there almost every week, pumping that out. They pump our drains, they pump everything, they clean everything up every week.
That's different than stormwater, though.
Yeah.
So it shouldn't be relevant in this case. But anyway, it's something we can talk about. It was one that just jumped out at me because I know that is an expense that I'm just trying to figure out how we can avoid creating unintended negative consequences on situations like this. Because if nothing's changing, it's just a different business use that requires the CUP. And now there's a bunch of additional requirements. That's kind of a bummer.
David Barsotti, he is going to be here Monday at 9. He did call me back this afternoon.
Perfect.
So, I mean, we are going to do the accessibility on the building. I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah.
It's just, I'm not disagreeing. I mean, I understand you need, wastewater, I mean, I understand stormwater, I understand that. Yeah. This is just, to me, extreme. Yeah. To go, I mean, that's a big pond. That's a big pond.
Okay, well, we're not here to litigate regulations.
Yeah, and Joe,
we cannot change regulations.
Right.
I'd just like to add, and I think Jennifer was probably going to say this, but a few things, right? First of all, is that the use prompted the CUP,
right.
Which when it was ag, it's not the same. Ag is not subject to all the same standards. Yep. But what I will say is that this is one of a couple of recent examples that have brought to our attention that our rules likely do need to be looked at. Yep. And Jennifer and I were discussing before the meeting how, in 2000 we enacted the first ordinance, we had some stormwater regs. Well, then they got really restrictive. We required pre-settlement, and we got rid of that maybe 10, 15 years ago. And so, as with a lot of regulations, the pendulum swings. Yep. So this will not be the last time you talk about this, because we'll be coming back to you at some point in the next 6 months to talk a little bit more about it, and we can kind of educate you a little bit on when it comes up and what's required. So.
Perfect.
Sean, I have a couple.
Please.
I'm just curious, how is it that this becomes after the fact? Why wasn't there a plan before the addition or the placement of the new structure?
No, we were never instructed to do anything. So it's kind of funny too, is like when we went and built the shop, that new shop in Wash Bay, I think my brother went to the county, got a permit, and then they said we didn't need a permit, and they gave us our money back for the permit. So we only needed a township permit to build that shop in Wash Bay. And then all of a sudden, then I mean, Jennifer told me that it should have probably been done, when we did it. But if it was because it was ag and nothing was done, well, I don't know what changes the rain if it's a commercial building and it rains. Is the rain different if it's ag? It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I mean, I could see what triggered it. We sold the property. I mean, I understand
That's
that.
what tripped it.
They're just doing their job, and I get that. And
Yep.
we're very lucky to have these two that are so smart. But
It doesn't include any of us.
All
So,
right.
so Angie, how is it that then why were they not required to have the permit to begin with? That's okay. If somebody made a mistake, that's okay. We're not,
It's,
okay.
it changed use.
Yeah,
It changed
so
use,
when they
yeah.
had the mink farm there and the manufacturing of the food was associated with that farm, and that's what we were aware of, it was just food for that farm, and then that was sold. So obviously, they're still producing mink food, so now it's a business in the country. And like I said, it's an allowed use in the ag district, and the county supports ag businesses. But when it's a bigger scale business and not just related to your own farm on that site, it's a business requiring the CUP.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then the next question is, with all that, when I was out there looking at the property, the present driveway parking area, is that crushed gravel?
it's they mix concrete, some concrete and class 5, and then we put a little bit of like recycled tar over the top. We got it from Voss.
So it is impervious?
Yeah, it would be considered impervious.
And that's why we're requiring such a large amount for the holding pond, correct?
Yeah, Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
they've got, I can't remember exactly from the stormwater plan, nearly 4 acres of coverage there.
Yeah, and see, just looking at it, I thought it was pervious. That's why I didn't.
That's what that's so like when I talked to Brian, that's what triggers kind of how big the pond has to be but like in this case, the pond is, according to the ordinance, the pond is over 10 times bigger than what it actually has to be. You know, I mean, we could spend, $15,000 to put a pond in instead of spending 100 or 120.
Just a question, the green vegetated area I'm gonna say it's to the west of the wash bay?
Oh,
Am I
to the west?
seeing right? Yeah.
South there. Oh, there?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
That's between your between your buildings and, is it a cornfield? Is
Yep,
what you
we
said?
didn't really touch that, yeah.
So approximately how many acres of green space do you have there? I'm just looking at it as.
I really don't know. I
Does,
couldn't tell
does
you.
the water from the building area flow that direction?
It
where
literally
filters?
when it hits the grass,
Yeah.
it does not go 15 feet. We got 6 inches of rain in like 2 hours, and I don't think it went 20 feet. The water did. I mean, I could walk through it with my tennis shoes on. And then you go to the other ditches, and you need a canoe. So it just doesn't make a lot of sense. It just doesn't make any sense to me. Why spend the money?
Okay. Public?
Yes, this is a public hearing. If there's anyone here from the public who wishes to speak and address this issue, please come forward.
I'll
Do we
make a
have any
motion to close.
correspondence?
No correspondence.
All righty.
Okay, now I'll make my motion to close public hearing.
I have a motion and looking for a second.
I'll second.
Oh, you have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Further discussion. How do we approach this?
No, Mr. Chair, just a proposal. I think we just review it as is, but to the point, we can't change an ordinance here, but I think we've identified an opportunity to maybe clean up the ordinances a little bit and make sure that we can, again, all of them are done with the best intentions, and then you just run into some unintended consequences, so it allows the opportunity to improve it. And it sounds like staff may be bringing some recommendations, and there will be the conditions. I don't know if we can set a date on the stormwater to allow the opportunity. Within the conditions, it's obviously required, but we could probably set the date far enough that we could look at maybe ordinance changes that would allow them to meet the current standards if they were to change.
Yeah, Mr.
Talking
Chair.
about, I'm sorry, are we talking about tabling it or, no?
The conditions, as proposed, indicate that the stormwater management plan shall be installed by a certain date. We threw out there June 15th. And Angie has indicated we're going to be looking at the standards over this winter, so they'd be in place.
So we're voting on this as is.
But you can discuss moving that timeline out a bit if you want. The other thing I was going to point out, the applicant would like to say something else if you're okay allowing that.
Oh.
Yes.
I mean, what I would like to see done is a stay for, so next week, Brian Schultz, the engineer, he's gonna send, emails over to, the commissioners. And I don't know if about how the surrounding counties are doing their stormwater and how the ordinance, kind of like, I think how he thinks maybe should be done. And I know he's gonna get there. I know like Jeff Bertram will get it early next week. And we want to comply, and what I would like to see is a stay on this and putting, $150,000 in an account until maybe, let's see how that moves for maybe 6 months or 8 months, and then revisit this.
So you want to pull the application?
We can table it.
Mr. Chair, go ahead, Jen.
Well, since this has been a kind of an ongoing compliance situation where we're trying to get the property legally permitted, we'd prefer to see the conditional use permit acted on. The condition could be such that they have to meet the standards.
Thank you,
Go ahead,
Jen.
Jason.
Mr. Chair, I was going to recommend that we just make a modification to 1.A in the recommended actions or conditions. And this is negotiable here for the group, but I would propose just pushing the stormwater management plan shall be implemented by, let's just make that.
June 15th.
Well, that's June 15th of 25, but I'm just saying, let's just push that back until like December 1st of 25, and then take that financial guarantee from December 1st of 2024 and push that off to June 1st of 25. And that allows some time for this to change. I don't think we have imminent issues. The property's been that way for the last several years. And so then we can still vote on it as is. We're just making it an
I
adjustment.
find that reasonable. We don't want to create an undue burden, but yet we're still doing our jobs and protecting the environment. So,
Sound good?
Yes, that would be our preference, and I see the applicant saying that that's fine.
That works.
We're certainly,
I would agree with that.
we
That's
can't-
working together.
we can't guarantee that the ordinance
No,
will change,
right,
but
well,
obviously,
but
we're going to go through the process, and we're not going to make somebody subject to an old ordinance if the new ordinance changes.
Sure.
So,
Certainly. All right, thank you,
Mr.
Jason.
Chair, so I just want to make sure we got the understanding correct as we approve it at the board level. Okay, so then it would be that we're going to go ahead and approve this with the recommendation of that it would be the larger basin. And with the assumption that perhaps the ordinance would change, then we could reduce the size of the basin,
Yep.
correct?
I
Okay.
agree with you guys
All right.
100%.
And it may be 1/10 the size, it may be 1/3 the size.
Might
but
stay the same.
It might stay the same.
It is
At least you
what it
got a
is.
chance.
But at least
yeah,
we have a chance to look at it.
right, because we'll come back and look at the ordinance then.
Yeah,
Okay.
and then just the last thing I'd add, I mean, this is in the best benefit of everybody to look at this, because if I'm sitting in the applicant's shoes and I'm now looking at a $150,000 additional cost to my business, that might not be the site that I would want my business. I'm going to take that out of the county. And that's not good for, the county either. So, yeah. So anyway, this is good. Good discussion, and hopefully lead to some positive change.
All right, anything further?
Mr. Chair, Angie, do you see any problem then about, is it necessity then to bring it back to the board?
Oh, yeah.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Persky, will be on your board agenda for Tuesday.
Right.
And it can remain on consent because everything is just, we'll modify that condition slightly.
Okay, that'll save you another public hearing. Okay.
Yep.
No reason to have a public
No.
hearing at the
With
board.
the board?
No.
Okay. All right, good.
Good discussion. All right, where's my, I'm all discombobulated now.
That's all right, though.
All right, let's move on to the findings of facts, please. Is the proposal consistent with the zoning ordinance? Why or why not?
Mr. Chair, I believe it is with Land Use and Zoning Ordinance number 439, section 4.8, 6.7, and 9.3.5.
Thank you, Jason. Does the proposal conform to the comprehensive plan of the county? Please list applicable sections.
I am going to go to business goals, and I'm just going to go right to the top, number 1, which is to increase the county's regional prosperity by being globally competitive and a business-friendly region. And I think some of the discussions they're having on stormwater would apply to the business-friendly side of it.
Thank you, Jason. Is the proposal compatible with the existing neighborhood? Why or why not?
Mr. Chair, there's really no change. It's just a different use. The existing buildings and processes are remaining the same.
Thank you. How has the applicant demonstrated that standards and criteria stated in the ordinance will be satisfied? I think he's showing a lot of effort to try to make sure everything is properly addressed. I like that. Other issues pertinent to this matter?
Mr. Chair, there will be a site visit with the conditions from the state to make sure that accessibility requirements are being met.
All right, thank you. Looking for a motion then.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to recommend approval with the proposed conditions, however, with the modification of number, I got to find it back. It was number 1.
1A and B.
Yeah, 1A and B. And I don't know if you guys caught those dates earlier, but I'm going to say December 1st of 25 as far as when the stormwater plan should be implemented, and pushing that financial guarantee back until, let's just call it June 15th of 25 instead of December 1st of 24.
I do want to mention that we struck number 5 from the conditions as well.
Mr.
All right,
Chair, I will second that.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you, guys. Have a good evening.
Thanks. Good luck.
Thank you guys so much.
Yep, bye-bye.
All righty. Oops. Number 5. Agenda item number 5. This is an application to consider an interim use permit request submitted by Enterprise Energy of Minneapolis, Minnesota. On behalf of Trout Family Partnership of Sartell, Minnesota, according to sections 4.18, 6.54, and 9.6.6 of Stearns County Land Use and Zoning Ordinance 439. The request is to construct a 5-megawatt solar garden on property located in the part of the southeast quarter of Section 32, lying north of 40th Street North and west of 55th Avenue in Brockway Township. Jen, please.
All right, so this is the first of 3 applications for 5-megawatt solar gardens. So this application is on the Trout Family Partnership property. The zoning is R10, which does allow solar farms. So when we look at areas of concern, it's within the City of St. Cloud's drinking water supply management area. So as required by ordinance, we sent notice to the Soil and Water Conservation District and the City of St. Cloud. We did hear back from Soil and Water, and their response was that the proposed project will convert annually disturbed soil to a more stable vegetative state, which will reduce soil erosion and should improve water quality leaving the fields. So the projects should not have a negative water quality impact on the St. Cloud source water protection area. Access to this would be from 55th Avenue, and that's a township road on the east side of the project. The topography is relatively flat, and the soil type is not a prime farmland soil. Since the project will create under an acre of new impervious, stormwater management is not required. In the application, they explained how their process to go through selecting a site, so you read all of that. The power lines and communication lines will all be buried as required up to the point of interconnection. They're proposing a 6-foot chain link fence around the project with 1 foot of barbed wire on top. They do state they're willing to consider a deer-style fence if that's preferred by the county. As far as screening goes, they're proposing screening, so there's some trees on the south side along 40th, and they're proposing to infill that where there's not trees with trees, and then they would also screen the north and east side is what the proposal is. They included a sheet of the visual impact analysis from residential dwelling to the south to show what their view would look like from their home. So for vegetation, there's no tree removal proposed, and they submitted a vegetative management plan. As you know, they're required to install a pollinator-friendly habitat within the solar farm. So they proposed a plan to meet that. And based on off-site review, there appears to be a farmed wetland in the southwest corner of the solar garden. So a wetland delineation is needed, and that's in process. If there is determined to be wetland there, poles are allowed to go in the wetland. Fence post poles and the solar poles are allowed in the wetland as long as there's not footings or concrete. The property did fall within a mile of a site mapped on the Natural Heritage Information System maps that the DNR has. So when you are within a mile of a site that's a natural heritage mapped site, they send that to the state for review. The review came back on this one to say the state had no concerns or comments on it. Basically, they didn't feel the project would negatively affect any known occurrence of rare features, so nothing needed on that regard. They submitted a decommissioning plan, and our practice has been to request $185,000 per megawatt for decommissioning escrow. And this will be a 5 megawatt project. Looking at the surrounding zoning, there's approximately 21 homes and 3 registered feedlots within a half mile of the property. Directly south is Leasock Township, which is urban expansion. And then north, east, and west is residential zoning. It's really a mix. To the east, there's some commercial uses, some farmland, some residential, so sort of a mixed bag. The comprehensive plan future land use map shows it to be in a concentrated development area. So suggested conditions, if the permit would be recommended for approval, would be this is an interim use permit, so we need to have an expiration date. They're requesting 35 years from their anticipated operational date. What we would suggest is to set the expiration date 35 years from the actual date it goes online. So if it doesn't go online for another year beyond what they're expecting, then the 35 years doesn't start until it's actually operating. That's our suggestion. And then a second condition would be having a qualified engineer certify that the foundation of the panels is within accepted professional standards before we issue the construction permit. Number 3, getting a financial guarantee for the decommissioning. That would total $925,000. And then needs to be either a letter of credit or cash escrow, and then require the permittee to notify the county a year prior to decommissioning. And then we would ask for an updated decommissioning estimate and potentially submit additional monies if needed. Number 4, the applicant shall install and establish ground cover meeting the beneficial habitat standards consistent with Minnesota statute and the guidance set by Minnesota Board of Water and Soil Resources. And so that condition explains all that, providing the financial guarantee to make sure it's implemented We keep that for at least 3 years to make sure the vegetation grows properly before we release it back, and we do monitor that every year until it's well established, and then we monitor it every 3 years after it's established. The ground cover shall be maintained for the life of the project. The seeding plan review and inspection fee is required to be paid before we issue the construction permit. That pays for our contracting with Soil and Water to do those inspections. Environmental services shall be notified when the site is seeded and who the contact will be for inspections. Number 5, vegetative screening shall be added along the north, south, and east sides of the solar garden in accordance with the submitted plan. And then we require a financial guarantee to make sure that is put in. 6, a wetland delineation shall be completed before we issue the construction permit. 7, Environmental Services Department shall be notified of any changes of project ownership, including new contact information. The developer shall make the landowner aware of all conditions related to the interim use permit. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Jen. We'll do a quick roll call of members who visited the site. Jason?
Yes.
Thank you. I did. Jake?
Yes.
Thank you. Rich?
I did.
Thank you. And Joe?
Yes.
Thank you. All right. As the applicant, Andy, is there someone here? Please introduce yourself.
Yes, I'm Evan Carlson. I am the founder and owner of Enterprise Energy, and we're the developer here. Well, I recognize some of you have been doing this for a while. For those of you who are new or newer, and I came from the oil and gas industry. I'm from Minnesota. I've been left the state to do oil and gas back when that was booming, but then when solar took off here in Minnesota, I moved back home. And I worked for other people for many years, developing projects. But about 2 years ago, I left. I started my own company. I had saved up my money and started to pursue my own projects. And this is one of them. So when you're talking to Enterprise, you're talking to a local guy who, I'm not going anywhere when this is over. I'm committed to the state. I use my own money. And when I say things, the buck stops here. You know, I can make decisions about the project. So if there's anything I can do to improve things, I have authority to do that. And I also, you know, being a relatively smaller company, you know, I understand the interconnection process. I understand the solar permitting process, not the land use permitting process, but I understand all aspects of it. So I can really dig in deep on any questions that you have on it. So I learning myself as I'm taking on new responsibilities. There are now 7 of us at the company. When I started this, it was a one-person shop, and these landowners were willing to take a bet because with me, there's a lot more transparency, there's a lot more availability, and I really throw my whole back into trying to make these deals work because I have my own skin in the game. There's no fund behind me. There's no, you know, this is it, which is an unusual thing. You're familiar with community solar, most likely. I don't need to get into that, but the law changed recently relating to the system size. So it used to be that they were capped at well, let's go way back to 2016 and before. You used to be able to do 5 1-megawatt projects on one site. They were technically 5 separate projects within one fence. But each one of those had its own point of interconnection, so they had a bunch of poles, and that's what people didn't like really the most about them is all these poles at the road. Then it went down to 1 megawatt, and you started seeing 1 megawatt go in, and maybe another deal come in a few years later on the same parcel, and now it's at 5 megawatts, and it's 1 5-megawatt deal, not 5 1 megawatts. So there's one point of interconnection with fewer poles. And we developers prefer that because it is much more efficient. You get better economies of scale, and it's a bigger deal. Land use authorities tend to prefer it because they're cleaner and you don't have as many of them. You know, that's what it is. It still operates in the distribution level of the electric grid. It still sells bill credits for people who subscribe to them. There's a limit on how many projects are approved per year. So it used to be unlimited 1 megawatt deals. Now it's capped at 100 per year. So you got to make sure you're doing good deals. It's a merit-based selection criteria, and that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to pull out all the stops on my application. I didn't skimp on any of the screening or setbacks. I think the landowners have been really generous with the setbacks that they have provided. These two areas are, these farmers are right next to each other. These are really, really big farms, and generational farming families where previously it might not have made sense to do a 1 megawatt deal because they got an irrigator there, and it can break up the field. Now, you see there's one in the corner of an irrigator on one of these. It's not this one, but that's always been the hindrance to getting solar done on this line. And now that you can do 5 megawatts, it makes sense to put a gap in the irrigator to do it. And it just so happens that most of the land here is owned by the two landowners who are right across from each other, and the ones that aren't, we gave big setbacks to, with robust screening. But not only vegetative screen, it's still an ag production in a lot of those areas. I mean, everything to the north and west is still in ag. I guess then it just boils down to why these sites are special. I guess I could describe the line itself as really unique. It's GRC 312, and I went into a lot of detail in that in my application. It's the main line that goes through St. Cloud, and it goes to the main substation. It runs all the way through Sartell and goes all the way to St. Cloud. And the reason you haven't seen, in a lot of other areas like Benton County, you see a lot of 1 megawatt deals got in there into queue and clogged up the queue, and they're still waiting to get processed because Excel studies these one at a time sequentially. So here, there's nothing in queue. It's wide open. And the reason for that is that line, in St. Cloud, you just don't have the land to do it, right? And then you go through LaSac, or you go through Sartell. Sartell does have an ordinance that allows for solar. I got some projects approved there, but they have capped on it. A cap on it. They intend to grow into that land in their future expansion plan, and we were able to find a site that met their needs. And then you have LaSac Township, which is basically the annexation area for the city of Sartell. And they don't allow for it. But they said, Sartell, look, do what you want. But you have to go outside of LaSac Township to get into a township that does allow for it and isn't in an annexation district for any of the nearby cities. So this line that goes all the way down to Sartell ends right here. It goes up and it ends at that point of interconnection for that existing 1 megawatt project, and then goes through the gravel pit and out the other side. And that is a huge line, and those are the only parcels that really provide access to it. And that's why these are really unique, and that's why you don't have a bunch of 1 megawatt deals already using it and plugging it up. So that's why we love it. I talked to all those landowners. These are the only ones that are really big enough to do it, but the other ones have their own obstacles. The other thing about going to 5 megawatts is they pay a lot more taxes. That's been a holdup on the ones. If you're doing a deal under 1 megawatt, it doesn't pay a type of tax called a production tax, and when you go over 1 megawatt, it does. So these actually not only break that threshold, but they 5x it by being 5 times bigger. And then also by virtue of being larger, they don't rezone it obviously, but they can reclassify the area for tax purposes and generate a lot more revenue. So I contacted, the assessor, and I put in the application, not the tax revenue, but the increase in tax revenue is $830,000 on this one alone. So I didn't give you the full number, like of course the whole farm is going to pay more, but that's just the increase. And what you lose on that is opportunity cost, of some other development going in the area. However, if you look around it, there's a lot of land around it. And when you see parcels that are split up, it's usually large lot residential. And if the city is going to meet its goals of having higher density residential, this is a great way to put a pause on that from large lot going in there for 35 years, and then at its planned decommissioning, it's removed. Perhaps then it'll be ready for some sort of higher density use that would generate a lot more revenue, and maybe by then it will be in in an annexation district or a comprehensive plan. But right now, there's not even plan for a plan for it. It's just sitting there. So I really tried to find a winner here. You know, I scrutinized the county, and if I had other deals, I'd have them right now. And all these are right here on this line in this township for that reason, because you know, it's no accident. Also, in the pollinator mix, I just stipulated to the state statute that says what pollinator friendly is. So everybody puts down a pollinator mix, something's got to go in there, but there's actually a state statute that says what it is to be pollinator mix, and it has guidelines for how you establish it over a 5-year period and how you maintain it and what seeds actually need to go in there. And I just put that in the application and said, we'll do that. Also, you know, decommissioning plans and all the other requirements that are required are in there. You know, there is that image. I don't know if you've seen this image of just the line of how big it is. It's a big power line, and that's the very tip of it. That's the point. So, looking forward to any questions. And you know, our landowners are here, and it's a very important project for our small business and these landowners too. So, if there's anything we can do to improve it, I'd like to hear it.
Mr. Chair, go ahead, Joe.
I've got a couple. First of all, Evan, and as you mentioned, because we switched from 1 meg to 5 meg, that all these properties are going to be subject to the production tax. And also, will it then also be rezoned from ag to commercial when it's the use of that? When it's under use?
It isn't rezoned, but
the
classification can be if your assessor does it. And honestly, I've seen it. Sometimes they do it, and sometimes they don't. But you should probably do it.
Well, it makes just a slight difference for the townships, especially.
Sure.
For their taxation.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a lot. The production tax is substantial.
The production tax, yes, is substantial. And then that's one of the issues we had with the 1 meg, is that we were stacking them, you know, on a property, and that ran into some problems. And because it was a strategy being used, and I appreciate we were able to avoid that. Now, a couple of other questions now. As far as permitting throughout the state, Angie or Jennifer, you might know this, or Evan, you might know it as well. Isn't the permitting going to be running out relatively soon, within the next few years, as far as the number of solars they're going to be allowing?
Yeah, so they're going to allow, I believe it's 100 megawatts per year for 3 or 4 years, and then 80 megawatts per year, and then it steps down to 60 thereafter. So the Excel didn't open up their portal for applications very early, so it's unlikely that many deals are going to be eligible for the 2024 100 megawatts. So they start going into 2025. And then every month that there are applications, they're approved until the month when they reach the 100 megawatt cap. And at that point, it reaches a merit-based selection criteria, and all its developers have to, you know, go pick me, but here's why.
Okay. Okay, but it is going to be scaled back, as I see, as it's coming forward.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is, you know, we saw an influx of solar gardens maybe 3-4 years ago, and again, these were the 1 megs, and we were permitting them for 25 years. Now we're switching now. And the last one had come by and they'd requested even a change over to 35 years, and now you're requesting 35. Why are we switching over to 35? Is it the life of the panels, or what's the situation with that?
Well, yes. I mean, the duration of the approved operation as a community solar garden, generating build credits, is 25 years. And but the useful life of the solar panels is at least 35 years, if not much longer. In fact, there's an opportunity you could repower these and replace the solar panels and keep all of the other components there. So if you get 25 years of selling bill credits, but anything that you get on top of that, you're selling power at the wholesale rate. But the whole thing is planned out for that first 25 years. So any extra time you get is just 100% profit. So even though it may be a smaller price that we're getting for the power that we're producing, the whole thing is paid down. So it's really smart for a developer to try and get 35 years, but it's not necessarily a deal killer. you need to have 25 years of operation. So from the date we flip the switch on, I need 25 years from there in order to be in compliance with the program. But the extra 10 is nice to have, very nice to have, but not mandatory.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, a couple of questions for Evan. So right now, the 100 megawatts, I realize that that's where they capped it. That's a first come, first serve initially?
Yeah.
Okay, and this is coming online a little quicker than expected, because I think there was a lot of speculation it'd probably be towards the end of the year before they'd have it all ironed out. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, a lot of developers got at this a little late, and I've been developing in Minnesota since it's been a thing. So I kind of already knew what might work and what wouldn't. So if you got a bunch of 1 megawatts you have to wait for, how are you going to get into that 100 megawatt allocation? It's really unusual. Finding opportunities like this where it hasn't made sense to do the ones in the past is really unique.
And then as the developer, so this is one thing I've understood, especially at this size, because have we had any 5 megawatt applications before? These are first 3, right?
In a long time, yes. Our very first solar farms were 3 and 5 megawatt by St. Joe. Then the
Okay.
state switched it to 1.
Okay.
And now the state's back to 5.
Right, so in my time in the planning commission, I haven't seen one of those yet. So it's back to being new to me. On that size, do you maintain ownership of the farm? Because I understand it's probably leased from the property owner, if I read the documentation right. Or does that get sold to an operator after the development, typically?
Oh, you mean the land itself?
The actual, the business of the solar panels, who actually is responsible for maintaining and ensuring that they're operating?
Yeah, so there will be most likely there will be a different owner of this project once it's operational. So as a developer, I don't get out of the deal until it's done, completed and fully operational. But I am trying to own a couple of these myself. I don't have, these are expensive, so I have to sell some before I can own some. But you'll see, if you look back at some of the other companies that started here in Minnesota in 2016, that's what they did too. They sold them to people with more money, and then you get big enough and you can start owning them yourself. But that's right. It's important to get all the conditions into the application and get it right. And even if a company says they're going to own it, you never know. I mean, even Excel is for utilities sell, everything is always.
Yeah. No, fair. I wanted to make sure I understood the business model, which
that's correct.
I did. Okay. Thank you.
Anything more? All righty.
At the moment, no.
This is a public hearing. We are open to the public. If there's members of the public who wish to speak to address this application, please come forward.
Hello, how are you tonight? My name is Ron Branster down in the Eden Valley area. I've dealt with this situation for the last couple of years with this gentleman here in Paynesville about a year ago. And I've been following and studying solar for some time now. And we have yet to find out that solar actually has been successful. Germany has been doing solar since 2000, and Germany has now failed at every single level. They are now turning on their power plants back on again. Solar has not been successful in any country in the world. It has failed. I've been following it left and right. It has failed. We also look at solar has a lot of downfalls to it, whether it be hail damage, destroying farms, massive fires on many of the farms that they have down in Missouri and many other states. We talk about arsenic that's in so many of these solar panels. We don't talk about that. We don't talk about the decommissioning, which is put back onto the landowner, because we also don't talk about conservation easements. This lady talked about, we don't want the conservation easement to start until the power turns on. Well, sometimes it takes 3 to 4 years before these projects ever turn on. But yet you go into a conservation easement project, and here you are, the farmer's out of his land right there on the conservation easement. So now you turn it on at starting that date when the power comes on, and now you're already into it 4 or 5 years. You know, we look at this from multiple levels. 1 out of 4 acres in Minnesota right now, 1 of 4 acres is owned by the federal and state land. 1 out of 4 acres. We're not using one bit of land from the federal, state, or county. Not the DNR, nothing. They're using only personal private land, and we're taking farmland, precious farmland, out of the economy, but we don't use state or federal land. Doesn't that sound a little bit odd? We're taking the land, farmland, but we won't use it. Why is that? Why don't we take federal and state land? It's because they already own the land. They already own it. What they're looking for is they're looking for your land. They want to take this. It's Agenda 21, if you want to call it. Vision 2030, it's their comprehensive plans. They're looking to take your land, the farmers' lands. And what I don't hear in anything that you guys talked about, I never heard about property rights. The property rights of the person next door or adjacent to you. I just went down to Meeker County. They just now, what they did was phenomenal. It didn't go as far as I'd like. But they put in private property rights for anybody when you're doing a solar. You have to get permission from your neighbor. If the neighbor doesn't want it, they don't do it. We don't do anything to protect private property rights in Stearns County. And also, you look at solar. This year, they said that if you go to 50 megawatts on solar, they can leapfrog you on solar. And if you go to 25 megawatts, the state can leapfrog you and take over the control. So what they want to do is they want to get in on these lines, and once they get to a certain level, they'll leapfrog you and they'll start taking over all the energy sources. And by the way, solar only produces 2.5 to 3% of energy. You're taking down the best source of energy. You're decommissioning the coal-fired plants at 85 to 90% to something that only produces 3% of energy. You would have to cover almost over half the United States, if not all the United States, with solar in order to produce what we're producing right now with nuclear and coal-fired plants. It's a failed program, and if you look at it, we're gonna have blackouts. Well, let's just look at Paynesville first. You put all these solar fields over in Paynesville, you blocked half of this city expansion. You got a lake on one side, you put solar on the other. Now the city of Paynesville can't grow. I mean, that was the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. You allowed Paynesville not to grow to one side. You stopped their expansion to something that's an eyesore. I mean, I could go on and on here with this, but you got a gentleman coming in here from Minneapolis, doesn't even live here. They then sell the business to one and then sell it to another, And I talked to Jeff Bertram on this. He said many times, many of these projects are sold 3 or 4 times before the county ever finds out they've even been sold. They haven't been able to keep up to the amount of times these solar fields have been sold. He told me that personally. This is a failed project. It's not going to work. If you could show the public that this is something that has worked and it is viable and works, well then fine, let's do it. But when you're taking prime property rights and the person next to you taking their private property rights, and by the way, that's Article 5 of the U.S. Constitution. Everybody has the right to private property rights, and I don't see anything, you guys talking about private property rights on anything here. At least Meeker County and their planning commission, they went out and they said, you know what, we're gonna give private property rights back to the people. Well, we don't see that in Stearns County. We see companies all the way from Canada coming down and teachers unions and coming down and taking over the rights of these fields out of Canada. They're teachers unions that are running these solar fields. I see this as a lose-lose situation. It's going to continue losing. But if you could show me somewhere, somehow, where you could protect private property rights, and this is a successful thing, which it has not been, because what you're doing is not successful. It will not be successful when you. By the way, I did a whole study of this. You can look on the web and see the article that I read nationally. Minnesota produces the least amount of solar energy than any other state in the union. We produce the least amount of time in the day than any other state, yet we produce more solar, or one of the top producers of solar in the country, and we produce the least amount of solar energy. How does that even work? Explain that to me. And we're going to have somebody come in here, snake oil salesman, and have people give up their land, and then the neighbor next door has to sit. We have to drive by and look at these eyesores. And then we don't look at the future costs. And one of these power plants, one of these solar fields get on fire, and mercury goes in the air, or we have a hail damage or whatever. That's on you guys. That's not. I just see this as a failed project. I'm going to continue fighting it, but until you can protect private property rights, protect private property rights. Article 5 of the U.S. Constitution. Everybody should have private property rights, and you're not addressing that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. I know some of you. I am Sandy.
Introduce yourself.
I am Sandy Clocker from Avon. And I don't want any of the homeowners or landowners to take any of this personally, because I want it to be an education. And I want it to be an education for everyone in this room. You have just heard someone who is more of an expert than I am. But I have listened and educated myself on some solar issues. Stearns County, I hope, will not become the solar capital of our state. St. Cloud already is the fentanyl capital. Let's start looking into not throwing money, but solving problems. So we do have someone here that is from Minneapolis. I too kind of agree that, someone is here from out of our jurisdiction. I already see that maybe there were proposed 3 LLCs. Each of your items now come in with an Enterprise Energy with 3 different LLCs. So someone is already doing their planning, which is probably the money source into this, and will probably take the most money out of our county. So our township must be Brockway, I am thinking, gave away their rights. We've talked about this before. You give away your rights to the county. The county gives away their rights to the environmental department. All but one in this room are elected officials. And we, the people, would like to see that our voices are being heard. So I thought when I went to the commissioners' meetings that we were going to kind of put a limit on any of this. I hear some concerns there, but Joe, you're kind of frowning, and maybe I'm wrong, and I don't know if you can talk to me in this about a public hearing, but I thought we were going to maximize how much megawatts there could be. I knew it went from the 1 to the 5. I knew there was some concerns. I knew that they were doing the 1 and then the second one on the same lot. So I'm kind of informed with a little bit of that. But I still wonder if we are growing way too fast and if we need to stop and think about it a little bit. Let's let the future see if this is where we as our farmland, our food land, should be going. So some of the environmental concerns that I have thought about, have seen, have studied, and have read about are how do we know we have forever chemicals in our waters everywhere? How do we know if these panels are damaged through tornadoes, through the fire? We've seen the photographs, we've seen the stories, we've seen the damage that is done. How do we know if we are the environmental, if this is the green energy, how are they proving to us that this is going to be safe and environmentally safe? How do we know there's not an electromagnetic field? Has anybody ever gone into any of these with a Geiger counter? Have we ever found out if there's this electricity is what is causing some of the problems that some of the people are having? How do we know that the disposal or the mitigation is going to be done the right way? We're not there yet. We have a few solar farms out there. Let's leave the solar farms out there. Let's not put 15 megawatts in, what is this? Going to be a square mile? If something's going to happen, this is going to be a catastrophe. And I'm not saying that's going to happen, but do we really know? let's talk about the transformers, right? Now you've taken the land and turned it into a eyesore. Not only are the transformers going to be an eyesore, the electric power, the transformers. Now we need to take more land for the transformers. I think I said that 3 times. Sorry. The pollinators. Now this to me, I don't see, and I check and drive around the county, drive around the state, and I do not see a lot of flowers or butterflies or bees under these panels. Some people say it, and I've heard our county say, I've heard the environmental county say, well, it's because they're tipped this way or they're tipped that way. I know that they spray at least twice. I don't know if this is a gentleman that came to the commissioners meeting at one time, but they spray before they do anything. They spray. Do they tell you that? Now, where's our Green New Deal? You're already spraying the fields prior to. I've seen some solar farms where they actually put sheep in them. So we hear pollinators and we hear the pollinators, and I wonder if that's the sell, meaning for the people to think this is the sweet deal out there. Sounds like kind of a money deal to me sometime. So is it the money over the environmental safety? Again, I think we need to stop and slow down. When people are sick and people are getting sicker, I don't call it health care, I call it sick care. We have to find out why this is happening. So if you can wait until you have some studies, give it a few years, find out what happens, find out from other regions what is going on. Let's not make Stearns County another sore eye with the solar, with the sanctuary cities, with the fentanyl. Let's start taking care of the people. Let's grow our own food. Let's make reasonable, common sense choices. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Please, if you're just going to be repeating what's been said.
I'm Eric Brandel. I live about a quarter mile north of here in the Prairie Grass Drive loop. Am I allowed to ask you questions up here or not?
Address it through the...
Address to you, okay. So, it looks like there was a fund that's set aside, because I personally, I don't care if there's solar panels or not, personally. I have 2 slight concerns. Was the, I see money set aside, right? I'm assuming that's an amount that the county sets or something. I'm not familiar with it. Okay, thank you. Is that set aside in a way that when it changes hands and stuff like that, it's, in an escrow and it's, it's available for this project in 35 years for sure? Is that how that works?
Jennifer?
Mr. Chair, yeah, that is how it works, exactly. It's either a cash escrow, so the county has cash, which we deposit and hold on to, or if it's a letter of credit from a lender, when the project changes hands, they provide a new letter of credit.
Okay. Is there any accountability by the county, I guess? When, whether those funds are used appropriately afterwards and stuff like that, make sure the cleanup was properly handled and stuff like that. They didn't just go dump them in a field 100 miles away or something like that.
Jen?
I can answer that.
Joe?
Whether it's a gravel pit, whether it's a solar garden or any type of property that needs a guarantee for cleanup, yes, we hold them accountable. That's just the way it is.
Okay.
And so that's why we do what we do.
Right.
We just don't take it in good faith.
Right.
And if they don't clean it up, then the money is there to have somebody else come in and do it. That's the premise.
Right. They're not using those funds for other things. That money is there for that purpose.
Gotcha. And then the other more technical and a little more self-centered concern I had here, it's actually going to end up being probably for one of the other 2 properties to the northwest eventually once we get to that safe coming up again. There's a 5G T-Mobile tower behind the upper deck there. Is there any, precedence or, review that could be done to make sure that there's no interference from the solar panels or something that would interfere with that signal from that tower, because that's my primary internet connection to my home, and there's no landline high-speed internet connection out there. So I would like to make sure that, you know, I don't think this specific parcel is going to be a problem, but the next one's on the northwest corner, it's getting pretty close to the line of sight to my property. And that was my other concern, was that there was no interference from the, you know, maybe your transformers or something like that. Just make sure that there's no degradation of service there.
Evan, do you have an answer?
You know, that's a good question. My line of work is very similar to these towers, and I've never, like, the people who do this type of development work are often, you know, we kind of work in the same world, and I've never ran into an issue with it. I've never had anybody tell me that it has created an issue, and to be honest with you, it's the first time anyone's ever asked a question of me.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not trying to be difficult.
Yeah, no,
there's no landline options in that neighborhood that are sufficient for me being able to work and do my job. So, because I work from home. So
yeah, you know, I'm just
a primary
not,
concern of mine.
I'm not an expert in telecommunications. I can just say that it's never come up before as a question.
Okay.
If that were something that you wanted me to like demonstrate some sort of safety, I'd be happy to.
Yeah, I don't know if there's anything you could do to talk with whoever runs the tower and see if that interrupts.
It's probably Crown Tower, right?
I don't know who owns it. I know it's T-Mobile Services on it right now.
So the towers are private usually,
Yeah.
and then you got like a bunch of different other companies that lease the things on there, and they're different. I don't know. I've never heard of an issue with it.
Okay. Yeah, I did some Googling and stuff like that too. It didn't sound like there was. It said there's a slim chance, but like it's not. You know, it's just pretty rare. So.
Mistake.
Sure, we're speaking in the microphone, please.
I apologize. Yeah.
One thing I could point out though is that our equipment pads. Oh, sorry. The equipment pads are where your interconnection and metering equipment is, and your inverters. We moved all those to a central location within the panels here. So a lot of time on the ones, they're not as profitable. So you see those out by the interconnection point, right?
Yep.
And we put them out in the middle so that they're less visible. And you know, if they buzz or something like that, they're often and they're all that way. Both projects are that way.
Okay, that's fine. The other one thing I thought of when I was up here looking at this specific picture, is it required that the transformers and stuff like that are on poles, or could it be on a platform that's more behind all the garden and stuff, and you just run the wire out to the road, so it's a little less intrusive at the road?
Yeah, I mean, there's the inverters and stuff are on the pads.
Okay, and those are those areas in the middle there.
Yep.
They're already hidden.
And then I guess you'd have to go a little further north, but there are 3 poles at the point of interconnection.
Okay.
One is just like a regular Excel pole that
Okay.
is added to their equipment,
Gotcha.
and then one has our wire goes up from underground, and the other it goes across and has like the thing where it is able to connect into the Excel pole. So, but apart from that, that was one of the big benefits of going to 5 megawatts is they got all that stuff off the poles.
Okay.
So that reduces it a lot. And then the other one is, well, we can talk about that when we get there.
Fair enough. And then the other comment I'd have is, I know she brought up deer fence. I mean, at least from a personal perspective, I would prefer the deer fence if that was an option versus chain link with barbed wire and stuff like that, personally. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Is there any course?
Did you ask about correspondence?
Yes.
Good evening. My name is John Trout. I'm the landowner of that property. And I've reached a point in my life where it's either sell it off for residential or use it for something like this. And it could be 3 10-acre parcels, for instance. We're 2.5. That would be the other option. But there's nobody to take it over and nobody so this was my choice to go forward. And I would like you to take it under serious consideration to the next level.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Jen, correspondence? Or
we got one more.
I'm like anticipating.
Hi, good evening. My name is Nathan Dull. I'm here tonight on behalf of the Minnesota Land and Liberty Coalition. The Land and Liberty Coalition is a statewide organization made up of farmers, landowners, taxpayers, ratepayers, business and community leaders, and proponents of an all-of-the-above energy future. The coalition is united by support for protecting private property rights, building a resilient and reliable energy grid, investing across Minnesota, and ensuring the United States' national security. Like I mentioned, private property rights. A previous speaker honed in pretty heavily on private property rights. But this is a kitchen table issue. This is a matter of being able to pass on family farms for a temporary use, or as the gentleman next to me mentioned, sell it for residential development. When do we need to get permission from our neighbors to put up a grain silo, a new feedlot, or even add a shed to our property? It seems that solar is the only type of use that is given this type of scrutiny. And so the Land and Liberty Coalition is strongly supportive of all these 3 applications here tonight. We believe that they protect the private property rights of the landowners, contribute to decreasing rates to ratepayers, and ensure that we have at least contribute to a reliable energy grid. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that it from the audience? Thank you. No, please.
Good evening. I'm John Uderman. We're the owners of the other property that we're working with Evan on the Meadowbrook Dairy part of parcel. It's my wife. I guess we're getting to the point where we would like to retire, slow down a little bit. We have a lot of encroachment on rented ground from Sartell. We're getting pretty much kind of squashed out. It's basically farming ground. We milk 80 cows, and it's just getting to the point. 80 cows isn't a really substantial for 3 farm families, and we would just like to maybe phase out of the dairy part of it, and the land base is dwindling. And looking at that property, I have an irrigator on that, which is roughly 40 years old, and it's getting tired. If we would sell the cows, I guess we were just gonna, instead of raising corn, we would raise energy. And we would just like the opportunity to maybe have you guys look into that, because it's just another revenue stream for us. I guess we've worked 45 years, 16-hour days, every day of the week. And I think somehow we would like to capitalize on something we worked pretty hard for in our lifetime. And just would like you to have the consideration of it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, John and John.
Correspondence, Jen?
We have no written correspondence.
Motion to close.
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll second
I
that.
have a motion and a second to close the public hearing. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say same sign. None. Motion carries. Thank you. Further discussion? Gentlemen?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, question for the applicant in this one. Evan, I know you're competing for getting these applications in to get ahead with the 100. This is a tough one, and the reason being, as much as it makes sense for the solar gardens to go there because of the connectivity where the population center is, it also is in the transition plan. It's just north of Sartell. So Sartell's growing north. So kind of back to the point that the gentleman made earlier around Paynesville, it limits a lot of growth. And when you're looking at an IUP that goes out 35 years, which I totally understand the viability to make the project work, it also creates future issues for county and city growth plans. So there's a bunch of consideration when looking at 3 projects of this size based on where they're sitting. I mean, and if you zoomed further out on the aerial photo, you get it. There's going to be a lot of demand for this property, period, just because of where it's situated. My proposal or my ask would be, would you be willing to continue this? We're missing a few planning commission members tonight that on tougher topics like this, it's good to get more opinions on the matter. And that's what my request would have been, is to continue it, but I realize that puts you in a tough spot as you're competing for some of these permits. So I threw that out there as something to consider and see if you're open to.
Well, sure. I mean, I prefer continuing to losing any day of the week. But, you know, regarding your comments about Sartell, you know, I've been in I just got some projects done in Sartell. I'm very familiar with their comprehensive plan and their annexation district. And as of now, it is limited to LaSalle. And that's why we avoided LaSalle here.
Yeah.
And think of these as, this is a holder, so you can get something better than there in maybe 25 years. If you don't want to do 35, 25 years, 25 years goes probably pretty fast in the life of a city or an annexation area. But there is no plan to have a plan. There is no, like, there's not even, it's not even in the comprehensive plan. It's certainly not in the annexation area. And if there were homes to go in there, they would almost certainly be large lot residential.
Yeah.
You can't undo that.
Yeah.
And if you do this, you got a holding pattern. You got a real plan, maybe to create a plan in the future without somebody coming in and damaging that. But anyway, to answer your question, I mean, I'm not going to be difficult with you. Of course, if you want more people here, that's okay. But I do hope we ultimately get it done. It's our only shot at getting that line filled. You know, it's the only way we can do it.
Yeah. A lot of tricky topic with solar, there's points, and I don't think we're going to make a change some of the bigger questions and issues around solar just in our county planning commission here, but I always get skeptical of projects. The reality is what drove a lot of this is Inflation Reduction Act money that flows into the state, which changed some of the funding and things that flow through to Excel and everything else. And so when it's subsidized, taxpayers subsidize money that funds a lot of these projects, it questions the long-term viability of them as well. And so also, whether it's 25 or 35 years, it's tough when it's not straight consumer demand or something along those lines driving it. So more concerns why it's good to get more opinions, because I don't want to just come across and shoot stuff down that may make sense for the county, but it adds an element of frustration or challenge. So those are my sense. I'm good with where the rest of the group's at too. That's one opinion.
I think it would be nice to maybe table that for the rest of us to be here. This is a pretty important topic, and it would be really nice to have a full board for that if possible.
I agree. I was concerned about the fact that there weren't enough of us here to really dig into this. And I don't want to say no. If you're all right with it, let's give it a little more time. And
well, you know, on one hand, I don't want it to get blown out of proportion, you know, and these things can snowball when you table them. On the other hand, I value cooperation above all, especially, you know, I have a reputation for doing these things. I've done a lot of them, and I like to be as cooperative as I can. So, you know, I suppose I would agree to table. Is the public hearing still open, or is it closed?
The public hearing is closed.
It's closed.
Mm-hmm.
So when I come back here, am I alone? Would I have an opportunity to answer like additional questions, because there are commissioners here?
Absolutely. Yeah.
This discussion continues. It's just we won't have a room full of people coming and sharing additional opinions. And I think, in fairness,
unless of course,
unless
we have
we
all three of these together, because they'll still be here for that,
statement.
and they'll be able to speak.
I would have to.
I would continue all three of them.
That's what I'm saying. Is because we should keep them like together as a package.
That's fair.
You could open them up and close them if you wanted, but I mean, I guess I don't.
The other two would be open yet because we haven't. You're right. Good point. Good point. It's just one.
I think my recommendation would be that you reopen the public hearing on this one, because it's just a better process that way.
Sure. Sure, okay.
Because you don't want to be telling some people they can't speak on one and not another.
Right.
And you might
Does
have.
that require a motion and a vote then?
Yes, it would. Yep.
Motion, please.
Mr. Chair, before we move that, I just wanted to comment about the delay. Do we have any reasons for denial?
There are reasons for both sides, Joe.
But do we have any reasons for denial? Because what we would be challenged on is what would be your reason for denial? If it's permitted and it meets the requirements of the permit, okay, you'd have to come up for reasons for denial. Do we have reasons for denial?
Yeah, that's a valid.
So just by having more members here doesn't necessarily means you're going to have reasons for denial.
You know, there would be the reason for denial. There's a few of them, but the one specifically, does the proposal conform to the comprehensive plan of the county? From a planning commission perspective, as we were going through the 2040 long-term plan, the reality is there's huge demand in this township for large housing. I mean, it's something that St. Wendell Township's been a challenge for a really long time because of all the applications that are coming in.
Did the township make the recommendation to approve?
That's a portion of this. I agree. You also have to recognize conflict of interests. The township's going to look at tax revenue potential and how that's going to flow in, and that's great for their services, but if it doesn't necessarily represent the interests of those that live in the township, that's another angle that you have to look at. There are two sides. The county, of course, would love the tax revenue generated from this as well, but if the citizens that live in the county aren't represented in their opinions of it, then you also, I think that's the discussion we should be having as a planning commission, are weighing all sides of it.
So there's a question right there. Is it compatible with the existing neighborhood? That's one right there that can be brought up.
Yep.
There is but don't we have solar panels out there already?
Some.
Okay.
Smaller.
However, we also had a denial of a second megawatt on the same property earlier, so.
There are pluses and minuses.
Yep.
I just think it's good governing practices to have a full board for this. That's just my thought.
Well, Mr. Chair, we made decisions tonight earlier for other people, and it's just as impactful to them.
You are correct, sir.
So, I'm in favor of going on.
Okay.
I think when it comes right down to it, it's up to Evan here, isn't it?
Mr. Chair, actually, the Planning Commission has within your authority to continue it if you want, because you have 120 days to make, well, we have to factor the board in there, but you could definitely take another month, and then we would extend the 60 days. You don't need the property owner's consent to continue it tonight.
Well, and Rich, you're for continuing it. I respect that. I do look at other applications as some topics are a little bit easier than others. And this one, to me, is a little trickier because there are a lot of different opinions, but I've shared mine. So
when we talk about Sartell being limited, and I've been living in the area forever, and they kind of leapfrog to the south with their development. There's a lot of land that is open there for growth for the city of Sartell. And on the other side of the river, they're dealing with issues there that they're trying to resolve. So I don't think we're going to hem in Sartell as a city as far as its growth. And you know, growth for a city is impacted by what's going on in the economy. You know, if you're robust, usually your cities are growing pretty well. So, these solar arrays, gardens, whatever you want to call them, are in Brockway Township. And you would think the citizens of Brockway Township, if there was a huge concern about it, would be here tonight. And then saying that, maybe we need to delay a month so that the citizens of Brockway can hear about this. If there's really a concern out there.
Mr. Chair, and Rich, I would agree with you. The point is that they're not here. And the neighbors, the neighbors didn't show up. And some of those townships also have moratoriums or do not allow for soil, and they made that decision, whereas Brockway has not done that. And I will tell you, in the past, I've voted against certain solar gardens because of the opposition perhaps of the neighbors, perhaps also environmentally they did not make sense for wildlife corridors or for best use of the land. But the ones I'm looking at here is purely agricultural, that farmers want to go ahead and diversify and put something on their property. We talk about individual property rights and what people can do with their property. I don't see an adverse, these things don't smell, these things don't make noise. You know, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. When people put up those blue harvesters, there weren't a lot of people that were complaining about those blue harvesters going up on farms, but to me, they're not that attractive. But I really think we're going to find, coming back here, what is the reason why would be denying this? What is it that they're actually doing that does denial? Granted, I do not support the way the federal and state government has embraced these and thrown money about that. I have no choice. I can't change that, okay? And these folks have a right to take the opportunity that's providing, okay? So I just find it's going to be difficult, I believe, for us to have 3 more members here and have a denial without having substantial means by which to make that denial. And that's my point. And so we can delay it. That's fine. But I got a feeling we're just going to be the same place we are right now.
Regarding the delay, you know, if the intent of the delay is to give all of the commissioners a voice, I understand that. But if the intent is to drum up controversy over it, or talk to people that, you know, I've been to the township. I attended a township meeting. They're aware of the project. If that is my concern in terms of the delay. I don't want it to come back and it to be a whole new animal. But, you know, the facts are all here. I mean, it complies with the ordinance. It is a carefully selected project with enormous setbacks that provides a lot of tax revenue to the county. And at the end of the day, the concern is you got one in the hand and you got 2 in the bush, you know? And, but I don't think that, I mean, there's always coulda, woulda, but this is here and it produces revenue and it complies with the ordinance. So, you know, I would hope that you would just send it through, but if you need to delay, I mean, if you're thinking, let me put it this way, if you're thinking of denying, I'd certainly prefer a delay. If you're thinking of approving, that's the answer I like.
You don't want me to answer.
We can't give it away.
Well, you know, that's what we're all thinking, right? I mean, isn't that like...
Yeah. Well.
So, Mr. Chair, as far as this proposal being effective with the city of Sartell's expansion, I've been there almost 64 years already, almost 65 years, and there's 8-9 miles between me and the south side of Sartell, and probably 6 miles between me and most of the city's housing where they have sewer and water. I don't think it's going to be in the way of future expansion.
I've been in and out of, I mean, I've been working with Sartell for a long time. I leased land from the city of Sartell. I went through a moratorium that came out the other side, worked with the township to annex in. This is not on that radar.
You know what, since I was the one that mentioned the city of Sartell expansion, let me just clarify. Good points. I didn't directly mean the city annexing property. I was really looking at the growth that goes into the Sartell School District and the surrounding area. There is demand for that space, for that acreage, and we're seeing it, and it is large development. It's not necessarily city lots. But we've seen it over the last decade in the amount of rezoning requests for St. Wendell Township, and I don't see that slowing down. But anyway, so good points, I agree. I don't think the city of Sartell is going to move that far out. I've spoken too much, so I will sit back.
Well,
Am I in order to put it, to make a motion to, we vote on it tonight, or only are you guys allowed to make a motion? So I move we vote on it tonight. Do we?
No.
Mr. Chair?
I'm okay with that.
All right.
Get to my findings of fact. We'll proceed with that. Is the proposal consistent with the zoning ordinance? Why or why not?
Mr. Chair, it is in, it's consistent with zoning ordinance 439, sections 4.18, 6.54, and 9.6.6. A solar farm is allowed as an interim use permit.
Thank you, Rich. Anything more, anyone?
No.
Does the proposal conform to the comprehensive plan of the county? List applicable sections, please.
Got to bring that up.
Go ahead, Rich.
I can't find it yet. I gotta pan through here.
So I could argue it a few different ways, and I'll just make one of them. I would go with one that says it does not, and that rural business should not alter the rural character of the neighborhood and should not create negative impacts on the public health, safety, and general welfare of adjacent property owners. Underline the general welfare when people get concerned about sites and all of that fun stuff. And then the rural character aspect. Now, we could also flip that and talk about all kinds of business goals that it meets as well. So you can argue it both ways, in my opinion.
Mr. Chair, before you move on, can you have a conversation about which one would meet, please?
Yeah.
So we have something to bring to the board.
We could increase county's regional prosperity, being globally competitive business from the region. We could talk about increase the value of the county economic production by ensuring that operations sustain natural resources. You could argue this one for or against in a few different ways, the way I see it, depending on how you look at it particularly. So it's those are a few.
Yes, thank you, Jason. Is the proposal compatible with the existing neighborhood? Why or why not? I think we touched on that. There are other solar gardens in the area.
You could argue.
Not as large.
There you go. Exactly. You could go both ways on this one too.
Same thing. How has the applicant demonstrated that standards and criteria stated in the ordinance will be satisfied?
There are a variety of conditions that apply to this, if approved, that would help it conform.
Certainly. Thank you. Yes. Other issues pertinent to this matter?
No, I think it's pertinent that we have township approval. That's pertinent. We've had public testimony citing a bunch of different things. This is a hot topic, has been for years, and I think that's pertinent to this matter as well.
Mr. Chair, just for the record, the township did not approve this.
Didn't they recommend approval?
They did not.
Oh, I apologize. I will retract that
and
statement.
in fact,
Thank you.
I had a conversation with George Fiedler, who is on the Rockaway Town Board, and they don't take a position on these. They just defer to the county.
Oh. Thank you. I
wanna word
misunderstood that. Thank you
Yep.
for clarifying, Angie. I was incorrect. Thank you.
All righty. With that, I need a motion.
I move that you approve the plans as read. You guys got to do that.
That was sneaky, though. I liked it.
I can't even make the motion. Which guy was that?
I just had a little bit of the parliament being the chair and on the on a college level, but getting pretty rusty there.
Hey, before we get to that, I do have a question, Mr. Chair. When we get to the escrow account, Angie, I don't know if you can answer this or not. We're looking at a 35-year request on the IUP. That doesn't literally just sit in a cash escrow, does it? Please tell me that goes into something other than a money market account.
It literally sits in a cash escrow.
It's illegal for us to do something or try to make money off of it or invest it or something, right?
I don't know the answer to that.
We defer to the county auditor. I mean, they need to follow those rules and.
Yeah, and I get why they would have to a degree, but it raises another concern on let me get to the other condition. Because we're at 125%.
Mr. Chair, and I can clarify, so there's 3 different escrows required. One, or financial guarantees. One is for the decommissioning, that's the big one, which if we follow the $185,000 per megawatt, that totals $925,000. So that's the big one, and that would sit in the account for 35 years or until it's decommissioned. Then the smaller ones would be to ensure the seating gets put in, the screening gets put in, and those are anywhere from 50 to, well, it'll be a little more because it's a bigger project, so maybe $100,000, and that gets released after 3 or 4 years. It gets returned.
Do you see part of the issue, though, with the money we're talking? I mean, $925,000 20 years from now, if a panel goes out, doesn't scratch the surface of decommissioning. And I'm speculating, obviously, but I look at inflation, look at costs over the last 5 years. We're talking 20. There's some things that are a little challenging on the condition.
Yeah. Not enough before.
True, but 125%, I mean, just do the math on compound interest on.
You're right, I wish we were getting interest on it.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, the conditions do require that they provide a updated estimate when it gets time to decommission. It requires them to provide an updated estimate, and if the cost at that time is higher, then we would require additional money be provided.
By who?
The project owner.
The owner that's operating the solar garden at the time.
Correct.
And then if they default, then it goes to the property owner?
Then we have the $925,000, and it would go to.
Mr. Chair, Member Crone, so my understanding of how this would work, right, because it's never played out this way, is that then there would be lots of people suing each other, and so where we would be on that, I can't say. What I would say, however, is, and I've probably said this over the years and nothing has happened yet, but the legislature has mandated the MPCA and other groups to develop a plan for decommissioning of solar sites in particular. You know, I think honestly the applicant probably knows more about that than I did or than I do. It's very possible it'll end up being similar to the paint industry where the people producing the panels have to pay into a fund, product stewardship fund, and that all this, it's very possible all this money that we're collecting will go back and there will be a state process to go through. That, of course, is speculation, but that's what other states have done. And there will be legislation at some point in the future. We don't know what that's going to be, so Stearns County has been more conservative by requiring this financial guarantee.
All right.
Sorry, threw another wrench at this one.
So, Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we approve this solar project and that it be forwarded to the county board.
Thank you. Do we have a number of conditions to mention? Do you have a number of conditions that we need to mention?
Yeah, well, there's 7 proposed conditions. So the one we would specifically need discussion on is the expiration date, the number of years.
Right.
And the rest are straightforward. Do you want me to
Please.
restate them?
Please.
Okay. So number one would be setting an expiration date, and the applicant is requesting 35 years from anticipated date of operation, which is, I think I have the wrong date in here. I think it was September 30th, 2061. 2061 is the year. Staff recommends going 35 years from the actual date of operation. Then, number two, a qualified engineer shall certify the foundation and design of the panels is within accepted professional standards before issuing the construction permit. Number three, submitting a financial guarantee to ensure decommissioning in the amount of $925,000 before issuing the construction permit. And then, along with that, the permittee shall notify the county 1 year before decommissioning of the solar farm, provide an updated estimate, and then submit additional financial guarantee to supplement the original if needed. The board may increase the financial guarantee required upon application to amend the conditional use permit if that, or interim use permit if that ever comes to be. The applicant shall install and establish ground cover meeting the beneficial habitat standards in statute and guidance as set forward by Bowser. The habitat assessment form shall be completed to show the standard is met and submitted along with the application for construction permit. They'll provide a cash escrow or letter of credit to ensure the vegetation gets planted properly, including a financial or a work and material list. And then the guarantee is kept for a minimum of 3 years or maybe longer if the vegetation is not sufficiently established after 3 years. The ground cover shall be maintained for the life of the project and continue meeting the standard, which includes filling out the established project assessment form every 3 years. A seeding plan review and inspection fee will be required to be paid prior to issuing the site permit. And this covers review of the seeding plan, inspections for the first 3 years and every 3rd year after to ensure the ground cover is maintained. Environmental services shall be notified when the site is seeded and who the contact will be for inspections. Number 5, vegetative screening shall be added to the north, south, and east sides of the solar garden in accordance with the plan submitted with the application. A financial guarantee, screening shall be 6 feet tall at the time of planting. A financial guarantee in the form of a cash escrow letter of credit is required in the amount of 125% of the cost to implement the plan. A wetland delineation shall be completed before issuing the construction site permit. Compliance with the Wetland Conservation Act is required. The Environmental Services Department shall be notified of any changes to project ownership, including new contact information. The developer shall make the landowner aware of all conditions related to the interim use permit.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
I would like to amend my motion
please do.
to include the recommendations.
Thank you very much. I have a motion. Looking for a second. I will second that myself. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say aye.
Aye.
It's 2-2.
Mr. Chair, can you please do a roll call?
I'll roll call. Let's see. Rich was an
I was an aye.
aye. Jason.
I was an A.
I was an aye.
I was an A.
And Jake was an A.
Thank you.
Thank you. So it just gets pushed.
Oh, does that mean it advances to the?
Correct.
Yep.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Can I have a minute to talk with the landowners here, just for real quick?
Sure.
5-minute recess.
Yeah, let's take 5. Let's, yeah. 8. Let's take 8.
Let's just go.
Oh.
Well, I'm going home.
Going to slip away.
Oh, sure, yeah,
Old
yeah,
man
if you'd
down
like to.
there.
Well, it's, I didn't want to speak for them, and if you want to speak about what happened, but the person who writes the letter didn't want to write the letter, like. You can say what you want, I don't want to step on their toes, if you feel like it, but I don't want to, yeah.
6. 6 is next.
Yes, we're on number 6.
Ready? All right, everyone, thanks for rejoining us. We're going to continue now with agenda item number 6. This is an application to consider an interim use permit request submitted by Enterprise Energy of Minneapolis, Minnesota on behalf of Meadowbrook Dairy Farm in Sartell, Minnesota, according to sections 4.18, 6.54, and 9.6.6 of Stearns County Land Use and Zoning Ordinance 439. The request is to construct a 5-megawatt solar garden on property located in part of the northwest quarter of Section 33, lying west of County Road 1, Brockway Township. The property address is 38545 County Road 1 in Sartell. Jennifer, please.
Yes, okay. Another application for a 5-megawatt solar farm on the R10 zoning district. This property, as we talked about, already has a 1-megawatt solar farm on it, and that was permitted in 2018. There was another request for a second 1-megawatt solar garden on the property, which was denied in 2021. And so here we are. So this, again, I'm going to skim over some of this that's redundant, but it's in the City of St. Cloud's drinking water supply management area. We did send out notice. We got the comments back from Soil and Water that they wouldn't expect a negative water quality impact on their water protection, on the groundwater. Let's see. This property has access from County Road 1, so being a county road, they'll have to provide approval from the Highway Department for the new approach that they would propose. Again, this is farmland, fairly flat. It's not prime farmland soils. No stormwater management plan is required. The fencing, again, they're proposing the 6-foot chain link fence with 1-foot barbed wire, but would be open to doing a deer style fence if preferred. The screening on this one, so this solar farm, this is the northern one that's proposed, and the proposed screening would be Black Hill spruce and dogwood shrubs along 55th Avenue on the west, and then County Road 1 on the east. And the screening shall be 6 foot tall at the time of planting and provide a financial guarantee to ensure that gets put in. They provide a visual impact analysis to show what neighboring homes would view from their property towards the solar farm. So that's in the packet. Again, they'll have to plant seeding under the solar panels in conformance with state statute. A wetland delineation was completed on this property and indicates no wetlands on the property. That has been sent out for review by the county. I don't think the official decision has been issued on that. So this was also sent to the state DNR for review for natural heritage review. And this one came back that there is a mussel within the vicinity. So the DNR has to do a little further review. We haven't gotten those comments back yet. So we addressed that in the conditions.
Oh, a mussel?
A mussel.
Like in the Mississippi, a mussel.
Correct.
Not
And
a
so-
zebra. Not a zebra mussel.
Right, a native mussel.
mussel.
Now, the project is on farmland. The project isn't on the river. There's not wetland on the property. So the expectation is there's not going to be comments, but we haven't officially gotten that yet. Okay, decommissioning decommissioning plan is provided, and we would require the financial guarantee to ensure that happens. Let's see. So surrounding area, as we know, it's residential, primarily rural residential and agricultural land. In the comprehensive plan, it's on the concentrated development layer on the future land use map. So suggested conditions, which I'll try to skim through, would be same as the last one or similar. So one, setting an expiration date, and again, they're requesting 35 years from operational date. Having the engineer certify the foundation, providing the financial guarantee for decommissioning, establishing the ground cover, meeting the statute, providing a financial guarantee to make sure that gets put in, and maintaining it for the life of the project, doing the review form every 3 years, having a seating plan review and inspection fee paid to cover that cost. Number 5, the screening would be required on the east and west sides as proposed, 6 feet tall at the time of planting, and provide a financial guarantee to ensure that happens. 6, provide an approved approach permit from the highway department. 7, the environmental services department shall be notified of any change in ownership, including new contact information. The developer shall make the landowner aware of all conditions related to the permit. 8, the completed wetland delineation review is required. Just make sure that process finishes up. And then 9, that natural heritage review letter is required before we issue the construction permit. If the DNR would have recommendations about the mussels in the vicinity, then those recommendations would need to be implemented.
Thank you, Jen. Quick roll call. Members who visited the site. Jason?
Yep.
I did. Jake?
Yep.
Rich?
I did.
And Joe? All righty. Quick, be brief.
Yes, I will. Evan Carlson, Enterprise Energy. Most of what I have to say is the same, so I'll go to the differences. Every project should get evaluated on its own merit, and this one does have some unique features here. All the stuff I said about annexation districts and all that is the same, but one really important point is you got a gravel pit to the south. That is a major commercial use to the south, so you got to get through that before you get to this other stuff. The other thing is the landowners were extremely generous in their agreeability to this layout. They have 500-foot setbacks. I've done a lot of these, and sometimes when you go into like a city or a jurisdiction that wants to create an ordinance that's really just like a deal killer that gets rid of solar, they'll say, we want setbacks that are 500 feet. And here we were able to just do it like right off the bat. So we did not penny pinch, we did not skimp. And in that 500-foot setback, you have enough room to add residential. If you wanted large lots to go in there, and if the landowner were agreeable, that could go in there. So you are preserving, if that were to happen, but when you get those large lots, they're always on the road frontage, right? They're not always going into it. So a couple unique features there that, you actually have that development potential. And I really think that the landowner deserves a lot of credit for an extraordinarily generous setback. I mean, 500 feet's a long distance. And then I guess directly to the west, you've got the trout farm, right? I mean, so you're not going to see anything there. They got a huge irrigator right there. It's further to the north. It's across the gravel pit. You got an irrigator to the west that's not going anywhere. If you're going to see something, it's going to be on the road, and you still got that development potential on the road. And then the fence thing, if you're making, I'm fine doing that deer style fence, and it's a little bit easier for animals to slip through it too. So that would be fine. Apart from that, the main points were annexation district, or not annexation district, but expansion potential. So try to look at this one on its own merit, understand there is some development potential. Maybe I can change your mind here. But, if you have any questions, we've addressed most of them already.
Sure, Joe.
Is there a relationship between these and the small garden there, the 1 meg?
Well, that was a different developer that did the 1 megawatt, and the reason that one they were interested in doing that one is because that's the corner of the irrigator.
Correct. Yeah, I remember.
So if you're going to interrupt the irrigator, you want to do it in the middle, but we did it in a way that also gave you the best setbacks and in this case development potential. And I do think that gravel pit is a big deal. I mean that is a major interruption in that expansion potential. So.
The other question, John, you're going to farm on the open sides there. You're just going to let that go, are you not?
Well, the potential would be maybe to
Can you come up to the microphone, please?
Could you reiterate the question again?
You're gonna farm the stuff on the west side there, you're not just gonna leave that, I mean.
No, that'll either be farmed, or we were thinking, me and my son, we would maybe plant maple trees in there.
Oh, wow, okay. And then same thing on the, on County Road 1, north of the small one?
Well, if you look at that whole parcel where the solar is in the corner, that's 75% of that field has got a tree line cover all the way around.
Yeah.
If you look where the existing, the whole line on Joe Lars where the gravel pit, that's a solid tree line. All the way up County Road 1 is a solid tree line. And going the other way to the east, that's about, 75%. So there's only one side that would really have an open spot until the trees would grow. So that whole parcel, basically, when people call it an eyesore, I would say they really won't see it because 75% of it already has a covered tree line all the way around it already.
But I mean, are you gonna raise corn or beans though on the inside?
Well, that would be the thing, or put something, or maybe some grass hay or something of the nature. If the pivot goes down, maybe a lesser crop because it's just really light sandy soil.
Okay.
Seed it down into a grass type or something like that. And
Anything more? All right, it is a public hearing. If you folks want to reiterate your comments, please just state your name and that you wanted to use the same comments from petition number 5, so we don't have to sit here and go through the whole thing.
Sandy Clocker, Avon. I have a couple of questions. Mr. Chair, I would like to know where the power goes from these solar fields.
Evan?
Well, I have a whole section in that in my narrative, and that's a big point of why this property was selected. It goes into a distribution level of the electrical grid as opposed to the transmission level. So the big ones go high lines, transmission lines that go from a power plant to a substation. Then from the substation, it stepped down and goes into the distribution grid, which is owned by Excel, which goes to people's homes. And we go into the distribution grid. And this goes into a particular part of the distribution grid called GRC 312, which is a distribution line that runs south along, I don't know if I can show you this, but it's this blue line that comes through here and runs right into St. Cloud. So it's going to feed Sartell, it's going to feed, the school up here, and everybody along that line into St. Cloud and then across the river to the Granite City substation. And there's so much demand on that one. That's the main line. There's so much demand that we're not even going to hit the peak, the peak of it. There's always demand for that power on that line because it's the main line. So it's not like we're pushing a line to capacity or it's big upgrade that's required. That's the main drag. So that's where it goes, and it gets used by anybody who's on that line. So if any power consumer is plugged into that line and that's producing, then it is serving those needs. And it does that. The demand for power is not flat, right? People need power during the day. Typically, when irrigators are running, air conditioners are running in the summertime, that's when most power is needed, and that's when we're producing power. So we help meet that peak power demand when it's the highest.
So you are saying that all the power will stay in our community?
Exactly, yeah, there's no export.
Okay, and what do you mean if they are plugged in?
Well, if you're using power. If you're using power on that line, then you're getting it from that line, which is where we're putting our power.
Okay, how many homes is that? Can you tell me that?
Each one of these, this is roughly 1,000 maybe, maybe a little more than that. You get some more efficiencies on size, I think maybe 250 a megawatt. But it's really, homes is not a good way to look at how power is used, because power is like, it serves as many homes as are on that line. So if you're asking me how many homes it serves, it's all of them. It's all of the ones that are on the line, if they're using power. And then you've got when we're producing power at peak demand, how much power are each of those houses using? So it's kind of a tricky question to say how many homes is it, but does that answer your question?
It doesn't. So if you say the homes that are on that line, how many homes are or will be on that line?
There are, in my estimation, 50 to 100,000 different homes on that line, or power users. It runs through Sartell.
So you think that this will be a source, a power source for 50 to 1,000 homes?
To anybody who's on the line, it will be a source of power when it is producing power, correct?
Okay, and are those lines currently there, or will Excel come in and put up on the lines?
They're currently there, and it ends right there at that line. So it's as far as away as I can get from the people while still plugging into that line. I try to get it hidden as much as I can.
Do you anticipate any brownouts or blackouts?
It doesn't produce power at night. I mean,
Mr. Chair, just real quick, we got to address the questions up here.
I am
Sandy.
sorry. I am sorry. Okay. Mr. Chair, what is it called when the county gets that stipend? And I don't know how to say that, Mr. Persky. Commissioner Persky, doesn't the county get a certain amount of money from the solar farms?
Well, we get two sources. One is the tax revenue on the property.
Yes.
So the property would change from being taxed as agricultural. It's going to have a commercial tax. So, and the tax is basically going to double on that. Okay, and that goes for the township as well. Otherwise, and you can see that this is different from an ag use. It's not the same as ag because it's being sold in another way. The other thing is the production tax, and that is the amount of electricity that's being produced. That's a tax, and I believe that might go to the state. I don't know, but the way it was before in the 1 meg, they didn't have to pay a production tax. They were avoiding that production tax, and that was a way they could skirt producing the energy without having to do that. So
And that production tax then goes to the state?
I believe so.
Okay. You're not sure what the 5 megawatt, but that's what you're thinking?
Yeah, but it's not. It's based on the amount of energy that
Okay.
actually gets used. So whatever they're producing. So.
Okay, and the person that is going to pay that, Mr. Chair, Mr. Persky, is going to be Excel Energy?
They're for selling the electricity.
Okay, and that will come from Excel Energy?
I don't.
The company who owns the solar farm.
The homeowners?
No,
No.
the company that operates
Okay,
the
the
solar
company that
garden.
eventually will be, okay, generating revenue for them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you very much.
Can I answer?
Hold your comments, please.
Hi, Nathan Dull with the Minnesota Land and Liberty Coalition again. Just wanted to clarify the production tax revenue. That 100% stays locally within the county. 80% of it is distributed to the county government to spend. 20% is given to the township. So all the production tax revenue stays exclusively local.
Thank you. It's good to know. Thank you.
Ron Branstner, Eden Valley. I'm reminded of a story that happened several years ago down in Litchfield where a county commissioner said to me, he said, they want to bring in a sanitation from Minneapolis to drop their sanitation down here. They want to make us a sanitation point for Minneapolis because they don't have the room in Minneapolis. And the county commissioners actually voted it down because they didn't want to be a dumping ground for Minneapolis. We're seeing the same thing happen here. They're not building these solar fields in Minneapolis and St. Paul, but they are the end users to this. They're taking farmland from us, but yet Minneapolis and St. Paul is the end user. The local communities aren't going to benefit from this. Their energy rates are not going to drop. They're actually going to increase. If you look at Xcel Energy is owned by BlackRock and Vanguard, the two of the largest investment firms in the world. They're not a small entity. They're number 1 and number 2 in the world. This is a public traded utility. This money does not stay here. It is a publicly traded. It goes to Minneapolis. The energy moves. It's not like they say the energy stays here. No, the energy moves. It's on a grid. When they say the energy stays in your community, no, it doesn't. It's a publicly traded commodity by the two of the largest firms in the world. They are pulling your chain. This is a smoke and mirrors issue here. Go look it up. BlackRock is number 1. Vanguard is number 2. Actually,
All right,
it's
let's
vice
stick to
versa.
the topic here.
Okay, what is it?
What the topic is, this petition.
In this petition, well,
This petition.
okay,
If you have something new to add, add it, otherwise go sit down.
but new to add it, this is,
From what you said earlier.
well, I just added 2 more things to it. I just added 2
That
more
were
things.
completely unrelated.
Unrelated how?
I'm not gonna argue with you.
Well, no, you're not arguing with.
Go sit down.
You are
You-
a non-elected
you can
position.
go sit down.
You are a non-elected official. The only elected official in here is him. You're
Really?
not elected on it. You're not elected. Nobody elected you.
Okay.
Nobody elected you.
Okay, go sit down.
I
done.
have a right to free speech, don't I? Do I have the right to free speech? Yes or no?
You don't have the right to take all of our time being repetitive and
Well, I
getting
wasn't
off on
repetitive.
tangents.
I brought up 2 new
tangents,
things. I
things
brought
that
up
are
2 new
unrelated.
things. I brought up 2 new things.
All right, Dave Fells, let's just drive on. Ron, do you got anything else?
No, I just,
Okay.
I'll take this up with the commission myself. Right to free speech. 5th right of private property rights. Know your Constitution, because apparently you don't understand it. You are not an elected official. You have no authority.
All right, thank you.
You have no authority. 0. When you get elected, we'll start talking.
On a little lighter note, I'd like to just reiterate the things that I said for the previous one.
Mr.
And
Chair, can we get the name again for the
Oh,
record?
sorry. Eric Brandel. I live in the Pregrass Drive, the little loop at the top of the map there. The only other thing, 2 small things I wanted to comment for this property specifically. Was the privacy around the whole thing or just the east and west sides? Sorry.
Yeah, the new screen's on the east and west side. There's just a gap on the north side, so
Okay.
we didn't add it there. If it's important to you, I'd.
Yeah, maybe just on the, because that development to the north west there, right? Like I'm just kind of looking out for 1 or 2 of my neighbors. I ain't gonna be able to see it personally. I'm 1 more lot over, but I know Trevor's on the corner there and stuff like that. So I don't know how he feels about it, but I guess he's not here today, to be fair. But yeah, just maybe, because I agree there's trees on 90% of this property, but kind of that northwest chunk, maybe like a couple 100 feet or something.
Filling
there.
in some of those gaps?
Yeah, just
Filling in
facing
gaps
that
isn't as bad
northwest
as doing a
corner
big
towards that development there.
Can we see to the north there? So like on the northwest side? where
Yeah,
there's
like
anything?
if you see where the crops kind of curve in the top right there, or top left, sorry. Yeah, just something, kind of covering. I don't know.
So we have
And it could be up against the solar panels too. I don't care where it is, just so you don't see them as much on that corner.
So we did it, a lot of times they put the screening right by the solar panels, but then you got you got the tree right next to the fence. If you put
Yeah.
the tree by the road, then you've got it does a better job of blocking something that's far away. It utilizes that distance. So but we did put in our screening plan, like a plan. It's a 6-foot tall tree at planting, and then a 4-foot dogwood shrub intermittently in between them. So we have specified what that is, and if you wanted that in that gap as a condition,
I guess the only thing in there is, if you put it right up in the corner, you do kind of block the view of people coming either direction on that road, I suppose. Because that's a very sharp turn there. So that's the only thing I could think of there is not wanting it right up on the corner there. Because it is kind of nice to be able to see over the corner as people are coming and stuff like that. So I don't know. It was just an idea. It doesn't have to get done. It was just a thought. What was the other thing? Sorry. I know it's late. There's something else. What the heck was it? I can't remember. Sorry. Where you were saying that it goes directly to that CR or whatever, directing this to you guys again to direct to him. Does that help improve the connectivity to the houses in that region, or would it just be to St. Cloud? Like, would I have less likelihood of losing power at my house because this thing exists, or not?
That's a good question, and because I know what area you live, I'm sorry, should I answer that?
Go ahead,
Yeah.
please.
So because I know the area that you're at is to the north, you actually will not be getting power.
Okay, that's what I kind of figured.
Because that's the
Okay.
Mayhew Lake substation. That crosses the river on the north end
Okay.
and goes into Benton County, and that line is totally full. And that's why it's really hard to find good sites like that. But yes, that line is full, and it ends right at the point of interconnection of that existing deal. So we slip in underneath it, and that's how we do it.
That's all I had.
Thank you.
Can I address the tax revenue?
Please.
So 1.6, or I'm sorry, well, yeah, $1.59 million in new revenue on this parcel. And this is coming from the production tax and from my email with your assessor, if it's reclassified. That is not the total tax value. It's over $1.5 million new revenue, still preserving development potential, even though you got that gravel pit to the south. And I just hope you can try this one on me. It may not make you like solar any better, but maybe this one is. I mean, it's adjacent to a solar array on the east, a gravel pit on the south, and it's got the greatest setbacks in the world. It's just, I don't know how you'd.
All right. Commission, questions?
Oh, we still have public hearing open.
Okay.
Mary Lou Uderman. We did attend the township meeting, and it was a public hearing. No one objected. The board supported us, and we asked for a letter of recommendation. They said, yes, we'll have George do a letter. George was not there. Obviously, George is neutral, so he did not want to take sides and write the letter, but the board supported us. Nobody denied it. And this is our farmland, and I think we should be able to do what we want with it. I think farming is the only industry where you can't set your price. You're at the mercy of what they'll give you. And this would be a guaranteed payment that we know we would get. And I hope you consider it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I add a comment yet?
Please.
Okay. Before, when Joe asked if we were going to farm that, and I don't want to toot my own horn here by no means, but we are very conservation-minded farmers. Actually, we were voted Stearns County Conservation Farmer of the Year for Stearns County. We won that title this year by somebody submitting it, and we were in the pool. And also found out that we also won the State Conservation of the Year, Farm of the Year also. Well, so yes, we do all no-till on our properties. We don't disturb the soil no more. We have gone away from any kind of plowing, tillage. Everything is on a no-till, non-disturbance. And we also were the first farm in the state of Minnesota to win all the 5 water quality certification awards. So,
When we discussed this, we included a wildlife corridor between the two projects to make sure that it doesn't obstruct any wildlife moving east-west between them. So that was one of
I appreciate all of that. Thank you. Anything more? Any correspondence?
No correspondence.
I'll make a motion. We close public hearing on this one.
I'll second that. Motion carries.
You seconded that one so quick.
Further discussion?
No, I mean, we've discussed it, and to be honest with you, I mean, it's a long night, and I'm starving right now, ready for dinner. But the discussion's good. I mean, I don't want to come across like I'm 100% negative on solar either. I've had really good experiences with solar, and I've had some not great experiences in my personal life with solar. So it's all good. I like the discussion, to be honest. So we need to have more of it. So that's my little comment plug.
All right.
Now, Angie, can we cite our responses from the previous, if we just say cite responses from agenda item number 5, can we do that or not?
Go through the
findings.
Well, we'll go through findings.
Yeah,
when we
read
get to
them
it.
and then you can say agree with previous discussion unless you disagree.
Okay.
Okay. Is the proposal consistent with the zoning ordinance? Why or why not? Rich. I think that is.
Mr. Chair. My mic is on. Mr. Chair, it is consistent with the Land Use and Zoning Ordinance 439, sections 4.18, 6.54, and 9.66. A solar farm is allowed as an interim use permit.
Thank you, Rich. Does the proposal conform to the comprehensive plan of the county?
Mr. Chair, I will reference comments in the previous agenda item number 5, and I believe that dealt with rural business policies, number 1, and that was a no, but then also that it would meet due to business goals, and there's a couple of them that applied, 1 and 2.
Thank you, Jason. Is the proposal compatible with the existing neighborhood? Why or why not?
Similarly, we could argue it both ways here. There's on this particular property, there's already a 1 megawatt solar farm there, so it's consistent. And then there's a lot of ag surrounding the area and residential homes, which would be inconsistent.
Thank you. How has the applicant demonstrated that standards and criteria stated in the ordinance will be satisfied?
And Mr. Chair, in the documentation that was presented and the extra buffer zones that they have and the natural screenings that are going to be planted.
Thank you, Rich. Looking for a motion then.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we approve the solar array along with the 9 recommendations that were in the documentation.
Including the adjustment on the dates. Again, do we have to state those, Jen?
Just confirm if you want to do the 35 years from date of operation?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, all right. And I will second that motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, say aye.
Aye.
And it gets pushed. Okay.
And just for the record, that was the same vote as last time?
Yes, it was.
Thank
Roll call. All right. Get my stuff here. Number 7. Don't bother getting up. Number 7 is application to consider an interim use permit request submitted by Enterprise Energy of Minneapolis, Minnesota on behalf of Meadowbrook Dairy Farm in Sartell, Minnesota, according to sections 4.18, 6.54, and 9.6.6 of Stearns County Land Use and Zoning Ordinance 439. The request is to construct a 5 megawatt solar garden on property located in part of the northwest quarter in section 33, lying west of County Road 1, Brockway Township. The property address is 38545 County Road 1 in Sartell. Jen?
Okay, so the staff report for this one is same as the previous item because it's the same property. This solar garden would be proposed south of the other one. So this would be the southern 5 megawatt solar garden. And other than that, the items are the same in terms of site information and performance standards, fencing. For screening, again, on this one, they're proposing to screen on the east and west side. Or, I'm sorry, for this one, it would be the west side along 55th. The south has trees already. The east has a solar garden, which has screening along one already. Okay, so wetland review is underway. Again, the mussels showed up in the vicinity, so we're still waiting on the final letter from DNR on that. The conditions on this one we would suggest would be the same as previously stated. I can go through them if you would like, or I don't have to.
Oh. Good.
We're okay.
Okay. Same, and they're requesting the 35 years from date of operation. And that's all I have on this one.
All right, quick roll call once again. Jason?
Yep.
And I was there. Jake?
Yep.
Rich?
Yes.
And Joe? Yes. I think we covered that one pretty good. Anything you want to add?
I would just add on this one, we intend to plant the spacing between the existing array and the new one in pollinator-friendly seed mix, as well as the spacing to the south. So that has all been planned for and accounted for in the plan.
That's that wildlife gap you were talking about, or the
No, the wildlife gap is the north end between the two of them.
Okay, you're talking about the gap to the
Right.
east.
But there will be a gap between
Yeah,
these as well.
looks like there's a
Okay.
couple good
Yep.
ones.
And, you know, I guess I got, make the case for this one too. It is right on the gravel pit. That is a gravel pit, and it has got a solar array to the east, and that space on the west is big enough to fit 2 baseball diamonds. So,
I
Thank
like
you.
it.
yeah.
Commissioners, anything new, any more? We'll go to the public hearing.
Mary Lou Uterman, I'd like to reiterate my comments previous.
Thank you. Anyone else? Any correspondence?
No correspondence.
I will make a motion that we close the public hearing.
I will second that motion. And all those in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. There are no nays. No correspondence. Further discussion.
Mr. Chair, I'm a little curious. You know, you've got a gravel pit to the south. Like he says, you've got a solar garden to the east. What's the would be the opposition or rationale for not allowing this to move forward?
I don't know.
I mean, it's the same as previously discussed. It's your take on solar gardens. To be honest, there's a lot of things when it comes to the same things we discussed about is the financial guarantee enough. There are a variety of things. I'm not saying that's all bad. I'm telling you, there's multiple sides to this thing.
Although it's a permitted use.
Certainly.
And on it, even when it comes to property rights, I believe it's the property rights, their property owner's right to do things onto their property. It changes a little bit when it's being paid for by tax dollars.
But we have no control over that.
I realize that, and I acknowledged that earlier, but it's a
Probably we-
philosophical
right.
thing too. Should that be the same way of looking at it?
And I understand your point about proximity. When they're all close enough that all the arguments apply to both of them, or all three of them, both sides.
Go ahead, Evan. I think
we don't pay for it with tax dollars.
indirectly.
What it is it's a tax. We avoid paying. We have a tax credit. It means we don't have to pay taxes on it. But it's not like anyone's giving us money for this thing. We get a preferential tax treatment. But we're paying you taxes. We're taking that money that we're saving on taxes and we're paying it to you. There's no one giving us money for it. There's no bank that I go to and say, give me money.
No, I would agree with that. Not you directly. It's the flow of money.
It's the flow of money.
Going into the programs that subsidize and provide for the credit offsets.
Well, it's the people that do that. The subscribers pay for it. They buy the bill credits and they pay for this is an aggregation of people who don't have a good spot for solar panels on their property. And they buy the bill credits. That's how we make money.
We'll agree to look at it slightly differently.
All right. If there's nothing more, we will go to the findings of fact. Is the proposal consistent with the zoning ordinance? Why or why not?
Mr. Chair, the proposal is consistent to the Land Use and Zoning Ordinance 439, Section 4.18, 6.54, and 9.6.6. A solar farm is allowed as an interim use permit.
Thank you, Rich. Does the proposal conform to the comprehensive plan of the county?
I will cite my previous answers for that one.
Thank you, Jason. Is the proposal compatible with the existing neighborhood?
Ditto.
Thank you, Jason. How has the applicant demonstrated that standards and clients and criteria stated in the ordinance will be satisfied? I'll cite Rich's previous answer.
Thank you.
Other issues pertinent to this matter?
previous comments.
Thank you, Jason. All right, we're looking for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we approve this solar array with the 9 recommendations and the emphasis that 35 years starts on the actual operation date.
Thank you, Rich. I will second that motion. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Aye.
Another one.
Push is
And there we are.
Excuse me. Push is good for you tonight.
A push, is it?
It is.
Good.
It is.
This is like blackjack.
Well,
Yeah. Well, look, I
It's
appreciate
way
your
better
hard
than
work here. I know
3
you guys are hungry and you worked hard on it, and I appreciate all your hard work. Well,
Mr. Chair, can I just, for the public's benefit, this will be on the board agenda for Tuesday, this coming Tuesday. It's on the consent agenda. We anticipate the county board will pull it from consent to do something.
And let me just say for the applicants, what'll probably happen, then we'll set our own public hearing. So what took place here in this room will take place in front of the regular board.
Good luck, Evan.
Good luck.
Thank you.
They won't be as mature as we were about it.
Do
Mr.
we
Chair,
have other
I make a
discussion?
motion that
We
we,
have any other
do we have to approve any minutes?
Minutes from August 22nd.
I'll make a motion, we approve those minutes from August 22nd.
Second. I will second that.
Them leave. Can we ask them to leave? So we can
Or
finish
you
the
can't.
meeting?
Well, how much
I
more do we
don't
have?
know.
We just have
I
to
was
minutes,
really
right?
rude.
That's,
I,
We don't have to,
I'll approve the minutes.
you made the motion, approve
Who
them,
made the
I
motion?
second.
I made a motion to approve the minutes.
And
We
I
are-
second it. John, are you picking up on that?
I seconded
Oh,
the motion to approve the minutes.
Then Rich made the motion,
Eh,
you
right.
seconded.
and I
Okay.
made the motion
And-
to adjourn.
And Rich made the motion to adjourn, which I am seconding.
Okay, all those in favor, aye.
Adjourn.
Well, I
Folks?
crunching all my papers up.
Get out!